Chapter 205. No one knew what had happened. This was the capital, the Kunwa training camp, and the mountain was guarded by the Imperial Army. But Zhao Qinqiu's reaction couldn't be a lie, and neither could Qi Weixi's arrow. In the darkness, the screaming Imperial Army soldier, who rolled down the mountain, couldn't be a lie. Without a doubt, this wasn't a test arranged by Zhao Qinqiu. This was a true enemy attack. Careful, move away from the window. With no time to think, Wang Chong shouted and slashed at the oil lamp in the room. Pooh! The wick of the lamp was severed, plunging the room into darkness. Xiao xiao xiao. Almost at the same moment that Wang Chong extinguished the oil lamp, a bone-chilling whistle echoed in the darkness. However, it wasn't a single arrow this time, but more than a dozen arrows whizzing in through the window. Xiao! One of the arrows flew past Wang Chong's head, and the immense force it carried left Wang Chong's scalp tingling. He felt as if he had just brushed past the god of death. Boom boom boom. At the same time, a deafening explosion sounded from behind Wang Chong. More than a dozen arrows landed on the spot where Qi Weici was pinned to. With a deafening rumble, a cloud of dust rose, and the entire wall collapsed. Even Su Hanshan's face warped slightly upon seeing the fearsome might imbued within the arrows. Get down, all of you, get down. Zhao Qinqiu had saved Qi Weici by a hair's breadth. Kneeling on the ground, he spoke in a panicked voice. This wasn't a drill, and Zhao Qinqiu was certain that he wasn't the one who had arranged for these arrows. At the very least, he wouldn't have arranged for the guards of the Kunwa training camp to be shot. Don't make a sound, leave this place with me. Zhao Qinqiu's voice sounded in everyone's ears. His voice was extremely soft, and it carried a hoarse and anxious tone. But soon, Zhao Qinqiu's voice was interrupted. Don't move. The outside isn't necessarily safer than here. Those people are master archers of the Turks. It was Wang Chong's voice, completely different from usual. When the arrows flew past, Wang Chong could clearly see that they were all wolf fang arrows. These sinister arrowheads were like wolf fangs full of saw teeth. Once they were shot into the flesh, the barbs on them would hook into the flesh, making it very difficult to remove. Forcibly pulling it out would result in a piece of flesh and blood. Only the eastern and western Turkic Khaganates in the north would use such arrows. Sharpshooters have amazing eyesight. Being outside without any cover might not necessarily be safer than being here. There's a tiger corpse on the ground. Everyone, push the tiger corpse to the window and use it as a shield. In the darkness, Wang Chong's voice was steady and calm, which was different from his performance during the day. He didn't sound like a teenager, but like a veteran who had been through countless battlefields. That kind of steadiness and calmness invisibly gave people a sense of stability and conviction. How could I forget? There are tiger corpses everywhere here. We can use tiger corpses to block arrows. Actually, this is the safest place. Upon hearing Wang Chong's reminder, Zhao Qinqiu also came to a realization. Tigers had massive bodies, tough bones, and immense strength. Even though all of the tigers here had been killed by Wang Chong and Su Hanshan, their tough and dense bones served as the best shield. Furthermore, there were even 3 Xian steel-armored tigers that Zhao Qinqiu had specially prepared to deal with Wang Chong. Furthermore, the tough armor of these tigers was the best shield against arrows. Zhao Qinqiu's mind was in a mess, and all he wanted to do was to bring his students away from this place. Yet, he didn't think that this would actually be the safest place. Listen to Wang Chong's words. Push the tiger corpses to the windows, doors, and other places that are more vulnerable to attacks. Zhao Qinqiu replied to Wang Chong. Peng! A massive tiger weighing around 800 jin slid along the ground, and with a loud peng, its back brushed against the direction of the arrow. Su Hanshan was the first to make a move. His strength was even greater than Wang Chong's. In his hands, the heavy tiger corpses were as light as a feather. Peng peng peng. As soon as Su Hanshan made a move, Zhuang Jingping, Zhao Jingdian, and the others followed suit. Each of the tigers was 2.45 meters long, and with just a few of them, they had already blocked the entire wall by the window. Not only so, they even stacked another layer on top of it. Pu-piu-piu. A series of dull thuds echoed in the air. Almost at the same moment that everyone was done, another volley of arrows flew over. Wang Chang's action of extinguishing the candles had played a crucial role. Unable to see the situation in the room, the master archers could only shoot blindly. Most of the wolf fang arrows pierced through the walls, only to be blocked by the tiger corpses. Be careful. The master archers of the Turk know how to shoot from afar. Be careful of their projectiles. Everyone hide under the tiger carcass. Wang Chong didn't dare to get careless. He quickly pulled a heavy armored tiger over and hid under its corpse. The massive size of the tigers served as the best cover. Hiding under the tiger corpses, Wang Chong was able to see through every part of his body. Zhao Jingdian and Zhuang Weici also pulled a few tiger corpses over and hid under them. Unlike Zhao Qianqiu's previous attack, this was an attack from a true human expert. Everyone could smell the thick stench of death in the air. Xiao xiao xiao. A series of hair-raising arrows echoed in the air. As if responding to Wang Chong's voice, a total of 50 to 60 arrows shot down from the sky. These arrows didn't come in through the windows. Instead, they shot from above into the depths of the sky before piercing through the ceiling of the palace and striking the ground. Due to the immense force behind the arrows, the tips and tails of the arrows trembled when they struck the ground, leaving everyone shuddering in fear. The arrows were simply too powerful. If not for Wang Chong's warning and the group hiding under the tiger corpses, they would have been struck by the arrows. But now, no matter how dense the rain of arrows was, the group remained unfazed. The ferocious tigers that Zhao Qianqiu had used to assault them had become their greatest protection at this moment. This was something that no one could have expected. Xiao xiao xiao. After a wave of arrows, another wave followed. This time, a total of 60 to 70 arrows shot down from the ceiling. The range of the arrows covered the entire room, even the area outside the door, and the walls were shrouded by the rain of arrows. Hearing the sound of arrows falling to the ground, everyone couldn't help but rejoice in their hearts. If not for Wang Chong's warning, they would have already fallen into the range of the arrows. Without any place to hide, it was as if they were completely exposed to the rain of arrows. After several volleys of arrows, as if confirming that no one could survive in the room, the other party's attack soon left. However, everyone's complexion was awful. Turkic master archers. Why would there be Turkic master archers here? Hiding under the armored tiger corpse, Wang Chong's mind was in turmoil, and his heart felt heavy. This was the first day of recruitment for the Kunwa training camp, and Wang Chong didn't expect that a Turkic master archer would assault them in the middle of the night. There were quite a few Imperial Army experts in the Kunwa training camp, and if they were to force their way in, they would surely suffer heavy casualties. Yet, Wang Chong didn't expect the other party to employ the tactic of a master archer. There was no need for the Turkic master archers to engage in close-quarters combat. In fact, they didn't even need to enter the perimeter of White Tiger Peak. They could easily target the entire White Tiger Peak from a distance of several li, or even several mountains away. The guards stationed by the royal court on the peak posed no threat to them at all. Everyone was a living target. However, this wasn't all that Wang Chong was concerned about. In his previous life, Wang Chong had never heard of the matter of the Kunwa training camp being assaulted by Turkic master archers. Wang Chong couldn't help but wonder if the matter had been suppressed back then, or if it was due to him that the future had changed once more, resulting in the appearance of these Turkic master archers. The three great training camps were appointed by the Holy Emperor to groom talents for the royal court. It seems like not only the royal court, even the Turkic Khaganate is paying attention to this matter. Wang Chong's heart turned grim. The royal court had established the three great training camps to select elites from the nobles, and officials. Such a huge matter had never happened before. As a potential enemy of the Tang dynasty, it was impossible for the Eastern and Western Turkic Khaganate to not pay attention to it. Wang Chong knew that he had neglected this matter. At this moment, what Wang Chong was worried about was whether this matter had caught the attention of Uzan and the Goguryeo Empire. Instructor Zhao, how many master archers are there in the Kunwa training camp? Sticking close to the tiger corpse, Wang Chong's mind worked furiously, and he abruptly turned around to ask. There are more than a dozen archers, but there are less than 5 master archers. Furthermore, they are scattered across the 4 bases. Zhao Qinxiu replied bitterly. Zhao Qinxiu understood what Wang Chong meant. The only ones who could deal with master archers were master archers. However, this was only the first day since the establishment of the Kunwa training camp. Other than a few master archers, there weren't any master archers stationed in the other bases. In the first place, this matter wasn't within the scope of the training camp's defenses. From the very start, the purpose of the training camp's defenses was to prevent others, or those with ulterior motives, from infiltrating the camp. Who could have thought that the Turkic Khaganate would dispatch master archers? Even though Zhao Qinxiu possessed extraordinary strength, he was completely lacking in archery. He was completely helpless against these master archers several li away. Xiu xiu xiu. Amidst the darkness, the deafening buzzing of the bows and arrows filled the skies. Screams of agony echoed endlessly in the darkness. It was hard to tell how many master archers there were. A master archer could shoot 50 to 60 arrows from a distance of several li in a second. If 10 of them were to shoot 5 to 600 arrows in a second, that would be 5 to 600. As long as there were 20 master archers, they would be able to create more than 1,000 arrows, covering the entire White Tiger Peak. The aura of death followed them like a shadow. In that instant, everyone's complexion turned awful. Wei Hao, you can only rely on yourself now. Wang Chong panicked. Everyone had their own connections. In the entire Kunwa training camp, other than Zhao Jingdian, there was another person Wang Chong was concerned about, Wei Hao. Kunwa training camp was surrounded by 4 training bases: Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird and Black Tortoise. Wang Chong had no idea which mountain Wei Hao was assigned to. Since the Turkic Khaganate had launched an assault, it was unlikely that they would only target White Tiger Peak. Wang Chong could only hope that Wei Hao would be able to avoid the danger upon noticing it. Under the pressure of the rain of arrows, this was the best solution. Ewo! Just as Wang Chong's mind was whirling, a wild howl suddenly sounded from the darkness. The reverberating howl shook the entire forest. Hearing this wild howl, Wang Chong's face immediately warped. It was the howl of a wolf. Furthermore, it wasn't the howl of a single wolf, but the howl of a pack of wolves. Chapter 206. Owa! A wave of wolf howls rang out, followed by wolf howls from all directions. Countless wolf packs had appeared in the vicinity of the White Tiger Peak. Even though the Kunwa training camp was more than 20 li away from the capital, and it was set up in the depths of the mountains, it was impossible for there to be so many wolves in the surroundings. Turk grassland wolves. Wang Chong's face turned grim. The howls of the wolves were vigorous and forceful. In the whole world, there was only one place where so many wolves could appear, and that was the grassland where the Turks lived. These wolves were huge and extremely aggressive. Over the long river of time, some of the Turk experts had gradually learned how to control these wolves. In the war between the Central Plains Empire and the Turks, there was a case of the Turks summoning wolves to aid them in battle. If a large group of Turk soldiers were to cross the border, it was impossible for the royal court to not notice it. However, if wolves were to cross the border one by one, even if the guards by the border saw them, they wouldn't pay any attention to them. Clearly, the Turks had resorted to some little tricks. This is bad. The Turks are preparing to use the wolves to attack the peak. Zhao Qinxiu's complexion turned awful. He had also understood the situation. If it was just the wolves, the guards on the mountain would still be able to deal with them. However, if they were to work together with the Turk master archers, they would be in grave danger. There was even a chance that they might be wiped out by the Turks. If the 3 great training camps were to suffer such a heavy blow on the first day, it would be a huge blow to the empire's reputation. As the instructor of the training camps, this was unacceptable to Zhao Qinxiu. This won't do, I have to get out. Zhao Qinxiu panicked. Outside, the terrain was vast, and there was nothing to hide behind. It would be easy for the Turk master archers to shoot them down. But at this moment, Zhao Qinxiu couldn't care less. Instructor Zhao, how many men can you gather here? At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded. Wang Chong's voice was as calm as ever. The sudden assault on the training camps had left Wang Chong more anxious than anyone else. This was where the empire would have the most generals in the future. The death of any one of them would be a huge loss to the empire. More importantly, if he wanted to change the fate of the divine continent in the future, Wang Chong still needed the help of these people. Until now, Wang Chong still didn't know if this attack had already happened, or if it was because of him that fate had changed. No matter which one it was, Wang Chong couldn't just sit back and watch this happen. About 6 or 7 people? Zhao Qinxiu didn't know what Wang Chong was up to, but he still answered the latter's question. He had a deep impression of Wang Chong. Wang Chong was composed, calm, and collected. He was able to find a way out of danger. Using the tiger corpse to dodge the rain of arrows was the best proof. Can you find any sharpshooters in the training camp? Wang Chong asked. What do you want? Hearing those words, Zhao Qinxiu's body jolted. Recalling something, he turned to look at Wang Chong. It is a great taboo on the battlefield for us to scatter and do our own things. It will be easy for them to take us down one by one. Right now, we can only find a way to gather the sharpshooters on the mountain to launch a counterattack. Wang Chong said calmly. Currently, everyone was scattered all over White Tiger Peak, and they were all doing their own thing. Under such circumstances, even if there were quite a few Imperial Army guards on White Tiger Peak, they wouldn't be able to retaliate at all. The only thing they could do now was to rely on the sharpshooters and instructors. But have you ever thought that if we were to gather together, we would be a huge target, and it would be easy for us to be destroyed by the sharpshooters? Zhao Qinxiu understood Wang Chong's intentions. There's no other choice. If we were to gather together, it would be easy for us to be ambushed. But if we weren't, we would die even faster. Wang Chong said. Zhao Qinxiu could be considered as an experienced commander, but in this aspect Wang Chong, who had been bathed in blood for his entire life, was even more experienced than him. I understand. 5 to 6 Imperial Army guards, instructors, and the sharpshooters on the mountain. This is the maximum number of people I can gather in the short term. Even though Zhao Qinxiu was an instructor, he didn't have the authority to mobilize the Imperial Army. Thus, Zhao Qinxiu could only look for those whom he was familiar with. This way he could also save a lot of words. In this kind of dangerous environment, sometimes speaking a few more words might cause him to be targeted by others and lose his life. So, Zhao Qinxiu leaped forward, and before Wang Chong could even catch a glimpse of him, he had already slipped out of the room. With Zhao Qinxiu's departure, only Wang Chong, Zhao Jingdian, Zhuang Jingping, Qi Weisi, and Su Hanshan were left in the room. No, that's not right. Wang Chong glanced around and realized that Su Hanshan had left with Zhao Qinxiu. The room was silent. Without Zhao Qinxiu around, everyone felt uneasy. Wang Gongzi, what should we do now? In the darkness, Zhuang Jingping looked at Wang Chong and asked with a trembling voice. As an elite of the Zhuang clan, Zhuang Jingping had been through a lot. But this time, it was completely different. At least 20 to 30 sharpshooters had turned the entire training camp into an abyss of death. Zhuang Jingping could feel death looming over him. This was no longer a duel between experts. This was a battlefield. No matter how formidable Zhuang Jingping was, he was only an outstanding scion. How could he have experienced such a brutal battlefield? Do you know anyone here? Wang Chong asked. I do, and they are all scions of the prestigious clans. However, I'm not sure if they are still alive. Zhuang Jingping said. All right, you should find a way to bring them here. Leave Qi Weisi here, and he won't be in danger for the time being. Jingdian, take care of him for a while. I'll go out to take a look. Without waiting for anyone to react, Wang Chong executed the dragon, ascending the clouds of the dragon bone art, and darted out of the room, through the hole created by the Turkic master archers. Phew! A gust of wind blew, and as he dashed out of the room, Wang Chong felt as though he had entered another world. At the peak of the mountain were numerous palaces that were riddled with holes. Borrowing the weak light of the night, Wang Chong could clearly see that from his feet to the base of the mountain, it was a vast expanse filled with ferocious wolves. The howls of the wolves, the howling of the wind, the screams of agony, the clashing of weapons, and the sound of the Turkic wolf fang arrows piercing through the air, turning the entire training camp into a camp of death. Wang Chong's worst premonition had come true. It was impossible for these wolves to deal with the Imperial Army guards at the peak of the mountain. Amidst the pack of wolves, Wang Chong saw a few short figures sprinting as if they were flying, carrying at least 2, if not 3, swords in their hands. They dashed through the wolf pack, and some of them even managed to ride on the backs of 1 or 2 Turkic wolves. However, the wolves didn't seem to care about them at all, allowing them to ride on their backs without attacking them at all. "Oh, Dakaji Ansaheo!" An anxious and stern voice echoed in the darkness. This wasn't the language of the Turks, and the Turks wouldn't use 2 or even 3 sabers. Gogurians. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind. His worst premonition had been verified. The establishment of the 3 great training camps didn't just attract the Turks, it also attracted the attention of the Gogurians in the northeast. Both sides seemed to have sensed danger from the establishment of the 3 great training camps. The master archers of the Turks and the warriors of the Gogurians, as well as the pack of wolves from the northern plains, formed an invisible noose. In that instant, Wang Chong understood that White Tiger Peak and Kunwa training camp weren't the only ones under attack. The other training camps were bound to be under attack as well. Given the scale of the Turks' actions, and the fact that they were working together with the Gogurians, it wasn't just to kill a few people or wreak havoc in the 3 great training camps. These people were intent on destroying the 3 great training camps. "Be careful, there are Gogurians." A shrill cry echoed in the night sky, but before it could travel far, a wolf fang arrow pierced through the throat of the imperial army leader, following which, 3 more wolf fang arrows pierced through his forehead, left chest, and right chest respectively. Pung! The imperial army leader fell backward onto the ground. Kill! As the wolves pounced forward, the Gogrian warriors hidden among them also charged forward. The entire mountain was filled with killing intent. Xiao! All of a sudden, an arrow flew toward a Gogrian warrior in the distance. Clang! The Gogrian warrior reacted swiftly and instinctively slashed the arrow. However, something shocking happened. As though expecting the Gogrian warrior to make such a move, the arrow arced through the air and pierced into the arm of the Gogrian warrior. Brat! Hearing the Gogrian warrior curse in Gogrian, Wang Chong abruptly turned his head around and stared at the direction where the arrow came from. But before he could think too much, an imperial army member on the mountain had already pounced over. "Be careful!" A familiar voice sounded from the darkness. Wang Chong hesitated for a moment before he heard the dense sounds of arrows raining down. Xiao xiao xiao! Dozens of wolf fang arrows fell from the sky. Pung pung pung! The ground shook, and a cloud of dust rose. 20 zhang away from Wang Chong, a dense carpet of wolf fang arrows was embedded into the ground. Chen Burang! Wang Chong finally recognized the person. It was the young hunter Chen Burang. Pung! Without any hesitation, Wang Chong returned to his room, grabbed a tiger carcass and kicked it out. It landed not too far away from the rock, where Chen Burang was hiding. Pu. Right after the tiger carcass was thrown out, a dense barrage of wolf fang arrows flew over. "He's being targeted." Wang Chong's reaction wasn't slow. With a single glance, he could tell that Chen Burang was being targeted by a master archer. Pung pung pung. The first one, the second one, the third one. Wang Chong used the tiger carcass to open up a path from the other side of the rock. "Jingdian, bring some tables and chairs over." Wang Chong turned around and said. The broken tables and chairs weren't enough to stop the wolf fang arrows, but at the very least, they could obstruct the vision of the master archers. On the other side, Chen Burang also understood Wang Chong's intentions. Xiao! He darted out from the rock and followed the path that Wang Chong had opened up for him. Behind him, there were 3 or 4 other figures who followed him. "It's you!" Chapter 207. Wang Chong, why are you here? Chen Burang was pleasantly surprised. "What about you? How did you end up there?" Wang Chong asked. He was equally curious. "That's a long story. In order to save them, I was targeted by a powerful sharpshooter. That guy's archery skills are amazing. He can shoot 80 arrows in the blink of an eye. The rock I was hiding on was shattered by him. If you hadn't appeared, I would have been targeted to death by him." Chen Burang's face was pale. He seemed to have exhausted a lot of energy, but he was still very excited. He didn't look afraid at all. Can you tell how many arrows he can shoot in a second? Wang Chong asked curiously. A second? Oh, you mean he's a fast archer. A trace of doubt flashed in Chen Burang's eyes, but he soon smiled. He had the simple and natural smile of a hunter in the mountains. When we hunt, our eyes must be sharp, and our ears must be sensitive. There are many plants in the mountains. Some prey can't be seen with the eyes, so our ears must be sensitive. Our village chief said that I was born different from others. I don't feel it myself, but I can indeed hear the sound of mosquitoes from a few miles away since I was young. Chen Burang admitted it frankly, as if he didn't think it was a big deal to have such an ability. The sound of mosquitoes? Wang Chong looked at Chen Burang in front of him. His heart trembled violently. It wasn't strange for an archer to have sensitive ears. All archers had this ability, and they had also cultivated it. But to be able to hear the sound of mosquitoes from a few miles away, even the sharpshooters Wang Chong met in his past life didn't have such an ability. He recalled that Chen Burang could sense the incoming wolf fang arrows in advance, but he couldn't hear anything. In an instant, Wang Chong seemed to understand something. His gaze towards Chen Burang was completely different. This person is too capable. It's no wonder why he could become a famous archer in my past life, leading the archers to be known as the elites of the Tang dynasty. Wang Chong looked at Chen Burang, his heart in turmoil. No one knew better than him that even though Chen Burang wasn't famous yet, he would definitely become one of the best sharpshooters in the world in the future. Putting everything else aside, just his hearing alone was enough to surpass the sharpshooters outside. Do you know how many sharpshooters there are outside? Wang Chong asked. The night was pitch black, and the whereabouts of those sharpshooters were uncertain. The most important thing now was to figure out how many enemies had come. There are a total of 43 sharpshooters, divided into two groups, one with 28 and the other with 15. Among them, there are 11 in the east, 14 in the west, 8 in the south, 8 in the north, and 2 in the forest 3,000 zhang southeast of the foot of the mountain. There are 11 in the east, 14 in the west, 8 in the south, 8 in the north, and 2 in the forest 3,000 zhang southeast of the mountain. Wang Chong was rendered speechless. Chen Burang's hearing ability had reached an unimaginable level. Two groups. Wang Chong quickly came to a realization and frowned. Aren't they all Turks? Turks? Hearing this name, the group stared at one another in shock. They had heard of the Eastern and Western Turkic Khaganates before, but ever since they were young, they had never come into contact with the sharpshooters of the Turks. I don't know who they are, but their shooting style is clearly different. One group of people used wolf fang arrows, while the other group only used vertical projectiles. They were especially powerful, and were even harder to block than the group of people who used wolf fang arrows. Chen Burang said as he took out a broken arrow. Wang Chong glanced at it. It was a diamond-shaped arrowhead, and it looked exceptionally sharp. Chen Burang had chopped off the tail of the arrow. However, on the remaining arrow shaft, Wang Chong saw the emblem of a three-legged crow. It's the Gogrian condor shooters. Wang Chong passed the broken arrow back to Chen Burang with a heavy heart. The Gogurians weren't a nomadic tribe, so they didn't have as many sharpshooters as the Turks. However, the top-notch archers of the Gogurians were even more formidable than those of the Turks. This was the condor shooters. Condors flew exceptionally high. Their muscles were powerful, and their wings were as tough as steel. Thus, they flew at an incredible speed. Most arrows, including the arrows of master archers, could be seen from above and dodged easily. It was difficult for most arrows to pose a threat to condors. However, the Gogrian condor shooters were different. No matter how high or fast the condors flew, they would be able to hit them. In the previous wars against the Gogurians, there were many elites who died in the hands of the condor shooters. To think that the Gogurians would send even condor shooters over. Wang Chong frowned deeply. You guys come in first. Chen Burang, eat this pill. Wang Chong passed him a recovery pill. Wang Chong could tell that Chen Burang's archery was extremely bizarre. To think that he would be able to draw an arc in the air. For an Origin Energy Realm cultivator, this was an unimaginable feat. Chen Burang didn't turn down Wang Chong's offer. Together with the other three, they entered the house. At this moment, There were already 6 people gathered around Wang Chong. Including himself, there were 7 of them. To Wang Chong, this strength was more than sufficient for him to do something. Everyone, take off your clothes, and use the broken wooden planks and wooden plaques in the house to prop them up. Make a few more dummies. Jingdian, bring them to make use of the tiger carcasses here, to build a small-scale defensive barrier. Next up, it will be our turn to fight. Time was of the essence, and there were still the Imperial Army guards blocking the way outside. However, Wang Chong knew that the battle could reach here at any moment. Leave the dummies to me. I specialize in that. Chen Burang immediately understood the meaning behind Wang Chong's words. Upon hearing that Wang Chong would be making dummies, he immediately understood the latter's intentions. He was born in the mountains and his family was a hunter. Making traps and disguises were all basic skills. Wang Chong nodded his head. Then he squatted down and gathered everyone. The enemy came prepared, and they are all experts. In a one-on-one fight, none of us are a match for them. Everyone take note. When we encounter enemies later on, follow this order. Whether we can survive or not will depend on ourselves. This time no one said a word. Instead, they turned to look at Wang Chong silently. In a life-and-death situation, everyone hoped to have a backbone who could give orders on their behalf and unite the hearts of the people. Without a doubt, Wang Chong took over this responsibility. Outside the door, the sounds of fighting, screams, and wolf howls could be heard. The stench of blood permeated the air. Due to the lack of time, Wang Chong could only draw the simplest combination attack diagram. This was one of the common combination attack methods that Wang Chong implemented in the army in his later years. Unlike any other commander in the history of the Tang dynasty, during the period when Wang Chong was the commander, combination attacks were particularly common and frequent. It wasn't that Wang Chong had any special hobby, but that there were simply too many powerful opponents on the battlefield in his later years. This was especially obvious when they were facing the foreign invaders. Wang Chong's combination attack was also born in response to the situation, but it was also for this reason that the army under Wang Chong's command was particularly powerful. Whenever Wang Chong participated in a war, the casualties of the top-notch experts in the enemy's army would be extremely frequent. These experts, who were supposed to play an important role on the battlefield, would often die before they could even cause a ripple. The Turks and Gogurians had been preparing for this night assault for a very long time. In fact, even though they had never come into contact with each other before, they had come to an agreement in advance. Obviously, these people had already considered everything clearly. It was currently late at night, and the Kunwa training camp was more than 20 li away from the capital. Furthermore, it was located deep in the mountains, so it was impossible for the capital to receive news so quickly. Even if the capital were to discover the ambush, a few hours of travel was more than enough for them to take down the Kunwa training camp. On the other hand, just the Imperial Army guards in the training camp wouldn't be able to withstand the assault of 40 master archers, Gogrian warriors, and wolf packs. This tactic of the Turks had maximized the usefulness of master archers. A net of death was woven around the Kunwa training camp. But Wang Chong knew that these people had miscalculated. They had underestimated the thousands of students in the Kunwa training camp. Chen Burang was the best example. There were too many future great generals in this training camp. As long as they were utilized well, it wasn't impossible for the Turks and Gogurians to crumble this assault. Alright everyone, remember the sequence. Time is of the essence, so hurry up and finish the preparations. As Wang Chong spoke, he was the first to rush out of the collapsed building. Wolf howls could be heard from outside, and he could already sense a few Turk wolves pouncing in his direction. Aolo! A massive Turk wolf barked its teeth with a vicious gaze. It was the first to notice Wang Chong standing outside the building. Roaring furiously, it leaped up and pounced forward. Chi! A cold gleam flashed, and before the Turk wolf could even get close, it was cleaved into two by Wang Chong. No matter how powerful a wolf was, it was no match for a ferocious tiger. The size and strength of the two weren't on the same level. Wang Chong would still find it difficult to deal with a ferocious tiger, But dealing with a Turk wolf was a walk in the park. There was nothing that could withstand the sharpness of the Wuxia steel sword. Chen Bureng was extremely efficient. Very soon, he had erected mini dummies in every part of the room that could be seen from the outside. Not only did Chen Bureng make use of clothes, he even made use of bedsheets. This caused the number of dummies to multiply, and every single one of them was extremely lifelike. In this aspect, Chen Bureng was definitely talented. The moment the dummies were erected, pew-pew sounds echoed in the air. The eyesight of a master archer far surpassed that of an ordinary person, as well as everyone else here. However, master archers weren't invincible. A distance of several li allowed them to remain undefeatable, but at the same time, it limited their eyesight as well. Furthermore, darkness affected them as well. At such a distance, even a master archer wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a real person and a dummy. On the other hand, their superior eyesight could also be used to draw the enemy's attention and exhaust their arrows. Chen Bureng completed his preparations. On the other side, Zhao Jingdian and Zhuang Jingping had also completed their mission. Wang Chong. In just a moment, the vanished Zhao Qinqiu finally appeared before Wang Chong with 5 Imperial Army guards and instructors. A massive bow on one of the instructors caught Wang Chong's attention. Master Archer. Chapter 208. Wang Chong, what do you think? Zhao Qinqiu's face was pale, and his body was covered in blood. The group was covered in wounds, and they had fought their way here. They had even lost 2 men along the way. The situation on White Tiger Peak was far more dangerous than what they thought it to be. Is this the student you spoke of? At this moment, the master archer instructor also spoke up. As he spoke, he looked at Zhao Qinqiu with a questioning gaze. His breathing was heavy, and his forehead was drenched in sweat. His clothes were torn, and it seemed like he had expended a great deal of energy. He was the only one who knew what kind of situation he had been through on the peak. All the master archers of the Turkic Khaganate viewed him as a thorn in their side. More than half of the arrows whistling through the air were aimed at him. Only master archers could deal with master archers, and only he knew what kind of pressure he was facing at the moment. The death that he was facing was much higher than that of anyone else present. Zhao Qinqiu nodded, indicating that he was the culprit. Howl! A ferocious wolf howl suddenly sounded from the gap in the collapsed wall, but it only lasted for a moment before it died. Hurry up, we don't have much time left. The anxious voice of 2 Imperial Army guards sounded from the gap. Beside them were 7 to 8 Turk wolf corpses, which they had just killed. The situation on White Tiger Peak was extremely disadvantageous. A large number of wolves and Gogrian warriors had scattered the guards on White Tiger Peak. The combined assault of the Turk master archers and Gogrian warriors was inflicting heavy casualties on the guards on White Tiger Peak. The pressure quickly spread into the room, and everyone's eyes were on Wang Chong. It was Wang Chong's idea to summon the master archers and Imperial Army guards here. So naturally, everyone had high expectations of him. Chen Bureng, come here. Without saying a word, Wang Chong beckoned Chen Bureng over and called the young hunter over. The urgent matter at hand wasn't the Gogurians and wolf pack outside, but the Turk master archers and Gogrian condor hunters. With these people around, none of the Imperial Army soldiers would be able to hold out for long. When dozens of master archers and condor archers aimed at a single person, even Zhao Qinqiu would be killed in an instant. This was the terrifying thing about a sharpshooter in the army. There's such a thing. That sharpshooter instructor had learned from Wang Chong that Chen Bureng's innate talent was extraordinary, and his eyes were filled with astonishment. There wasn't a single sharpshooter who didn't have sharp ears and eyes. However, it was impossible for him to hear something from several kilometers away. It was even more impossible to determine the other party's exact location. It was now late at night, and even he couldn't tell how many sharpshooters were hiding in the dark or where they were. The appearance of this young hunter in the mountains had really shocked him. Of course, there were more surprises. I see what you mean. This is indeed a very good fortress. The sharpshooter instructor looked around. There were wolf fang arrows all over the ground. In Wang Chong's room, the light that he had lit up earlier had attracted a lot of attacks and became the first target. But it was also due to this that Wolf Fang arrows were scattered all over the ground. This was equivalent to a natural material and an unlimited supply of arrows. As a base for a counterattack, it was the best choice. However, it's useless. The tiger carcasses in the room aren't enough to defend against them at all. Unlike you will only attract 1 or 2 people at most. However, as long as I make a move, I'll attract the attention of all the master archers. By then, Wolf Fang arrows will rain down from all directions, and there won't be a safe place at all. The sharpshooter couldn't help but be impressed by Wang Chang's idea. To have Zhao Qianqiu and the others protect them from the wolves and Gogurians outside, they would be able to launch a counterattack. Given his strength, as long as he had a decent safe house, it would be much larger than all of Zhao Qianqiu and the others combined. It wasn't that he didn't think of finding a safe place to launch a counterattack, but such a place didn't exist on White Tiger Peak. Of course, these tiger carcasses aren't enough. However, it'll be a different story if we include the metal cages outside. Wang Chong finally voiced out his thoughts. Soon, the 12 metal cages that Zhao Qianqiu used to store the tigers were brought into the room. These metal cages were lined up closely against the walls, covering almost every corner of the room. When these empty metal cages were filled with tiger carcasses, wolf carcasses, and a large amount of rocks and rubble, the sturdiest fortress on White Tiger Peak was formed. In that instant, everyone in the room, including Zhao Qianqiu, Chen Burang, and the master archer instructor, looked at Wang Chong with a completely different gaze. As a hunter in the mountains, Chen Burang was no stranger to setting up traps and disguises. However, even Chen Burang didn't expect that these metal cages could be used to create a safe fortress for the only master archer instructor on the mountain. For an archer, if they had such a free hand, they would be able to display their greatest power. The Turkic archers and the Gogurian Condor archers are both capable of long-range shooting, and the Gogurian's Condor archers are the most formidable. Chen Burang help instructor Chen. If you hear any long-range shooting, enter the metal cage at the center in advance. Wang Chong pointed to a 2-story metal cage at the center. This was specially made by Wang Chong, and it was made up of 2 metal cages stacked on top of one another. The top cage was filled with rocks, rubble, and wolf carcasses while the bottom cage was empty. This way, if the enemy master archer realized that a straight shot was useless and decided to use long-range shooting, Chen Burang and the master archer instructor would be able to enter the cage in time to protect themselves. In order to transport the tigers, Zhao Qianqiu had used thick Xian metal to construct the metal cages. At this moment, this Xian metal could be used to its fullest potential. Ha ha, Zhao Qianqiu, you sure have an incredible student under you. With this safe room, the Wolf Fang arrows on the ground, and this student, I'm confident that I can face all of them. Zhou Huang, the master archer instructor, laughed heartily. In an instant he felt much more at ease. Back at the peak of the mountain, he had been completely suppressed by them. However, with Wang Chong's design, everything was different. We only need to leave a few people here. The moment I shoot, I'll immediately attract the attention of the Turkic master archers. The rest of you should leave this place. Zhou Huang was delighted. Holding his bow in his left hand and an arrow in his right, he was ready to shoot. Zhuang Jinping, leave Qi Weiqi in the cage at the center. The rest of you follow me. Wang Chong beckoned, and the group immediately left the area. Even though the room seemed much more dangerous now that they had left. But with a master archer like Zhou Huang to attract the attention of the enemy, the group was much safer. Their priority now was to deal with the wolf pack and Gogurian warriors. Let's go. Remember the strategy one spoke of previously. Wang Chong whipped out his Wuxia steel sword and walked out of the room with widened strides. The group didn't walk out in a loose manner. Instead, they formed a military formation. Even the Imperial Army Guard, who had split off to work with them, couldn't help but look at them in awe. Owa! As soon as Wang Chong walked out of the room, he was greeted by the sight of a pack of wolves. Individually, these wolves weren't too strong. Regardless of whether it was Wang Chong or anyone else here, they would be able to deal with them individually. However, the wolves of the Turkic plains didn't rely on their individual strength. Instead, They relied on the advantage they had as a group to charge forward like a tidal wave. Under such circumstances, be it Wang Chong, Zhao Jingdian, or the Imperial Army Guard, any one of them would be in danger if they were alone. This was also the reason why Wang Chong advised Zhao Qianqiu against charging out alone. The situation on White Tiger Peak was already extremely dire. Corpses littered the jagged rocks of the mountain. Wang Chong, Zhao Qianqiu, and the others had only spent a short moment in the room, but the situation on the peak had already taken a turn for the worse. Kill! Wang Chong gripped his sword with both hands and strode forward, leading his men in the charge formation of an army. More than a dozen Turkic grassland wolves bared their fangs and howled. All of a sudden, they pounced toward Wang Chong and the others. Their eerie green eyes gleamed coldly in the night sky. Qi blood splattered in the air, following which, the corpses of the wolves fell from the sky, landing on Wang Chong and the others. At the same time, behind Wang Chong, more than 50 wolf fang arrows whizzed out from Wang Chong and Su Hanshan's room. Piercing through the air, they flew toward the surrounding forests on White Tiger Peak. The only master archer instructor on White Tiger Peak had finally made his move. In that instant, time seemed to have stopped, and everything seemed to have changed. Wang Chong didn't turn his head, but Wang Chong could sense the change in the sky above him. The rain of wolf fang arrows had suddenly thinned significantly. Everything seemed to have come to a standstill in that instant. Yay! 3 of them. 3 Turkic master archers are dead. Suddenly, a furious roar sounded from the room behind him. The voice was filled with uncontrollable excitement, and it was even trembling slightly. Chen Burang. It was Chen Burang's voice. No one turned their heads around, but everyone knew that Wang Chong's strategy was working. For the first time since the battle began, the Turkic master archers hidden in the forest had suffered casualties. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief, and the pressure weighing down on them lessened significantly. Spread out. As soon as he heard Chen Burang's voice, Wang Chong immediately issued an order. Everyone dashed forward at lightning speed, trying their best to get as far away from Chen Burang and Zhou Huang as possible. Xiao xiao xiao. A hair-raising sound echoed in the air. Not too long after Zhou Huang's arrows were released, a dense barrage of several thousand arrows came from all directions. Every single arrow was aimed at the area where Zhou Huang and Chen Burang were. Chapter 209. Wang Chong's strategy worked. Countless arrows rained down on Zhou Huang and Chen Burang's room. Relying on the metal cage in the middle, they managed to survive the first wave of arrows. Xiao xiao xiao. Another wave of arrows was released, and the surrounding mountains suddenly quietened down. A battle between master archers wasn't just a competition of numbers. A battle between a master archer and a group of master archers wasn't as simple as it seemed on the surface. When Zhou Huang obtained a safe house and killed 6 master archers consecutively, an invisible pressure was suddenly born on White Tiger Peak. The mountain range several miles away from White Tiger Peak suddenly became quiet. Zhou Huang's archery and Chen Burang's extraordinary talent formed the perfect combination. In the surroundings, the dozens of fearless Turkic master archers and Gogrian Condor archers finally quieted down. Wang Chong knew that his chance had come. Over there, a dozen zhang away, an instructor whose left shoulder had been pierced by a wolf fang arrow was lying on the ground with a pale face. Around him were dozens of wolf corpses and newly replenished Turk wolves. Dozens of wolves were attacking him relentlessly, and other than a few Imperial Army guards who had been killed by the wolf fang arrows, there was no one else around him. No one knew how long he had lasted here, but from his pale and sweaty face, Wang Chong could tell that he had expended a great deal of his strength. Qi, Wang Chong, Zhao Jingdian, Zhuang Zhengming, the 3 scions, and an Imperial Army guard swiftly rushed forward to save the White Tiger Peak instructor. With the help of Wang Chong and the others, the instructor's complexion improved significantly. Can you still hold on? Wang Chong said. Yes, the instructor replied. He felt that the young man before him was an unfathomable figure. In the chaotic White Tiger Peak, such a group was extremely eye-catching. Wang Chong didn't say much. He nodded and pulled him into his team. The next moment, Wang Chong led the instructor straight to the second place. There was a large boulder there, and behind it, an Imperial army guard had also sustained severe injuries from the rain of arrows. The wolves who smelled the scent of blood surrounded him tightly. After dispersing the wolf pack and saving the Imperial army guard, the number of Imperial army guards and instructors by Wang Chong's side had increased to 3. Wang Chong's determination, confidence, and calmness had successfully won the trust of these Imperial army guards and instructors. Now this was a force that could influence the situation in a small area. Next, the Gogrian warrior. Wang Chong pointed to a Gogrian warrior amidst the wolf pack. This person's hair was disheveled, and he exuded a wild aura. The 3 sabers in his hands were like a furious storm. Working together with the wolf pack, the Imperial army guard on the other side was forced to retreat step by step. As expected, the Imperial army guard wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. Boom! The 3 instructors and Imperial army guards beside Wang Chong were the first to attack, following which Wang Chong, Zhao Jingdian, Zhuang Jingping, and the other scions followed suit and attacked as per their agreement. Wang Chong's human wave tactic was effective. In just a single move, the Gogrian warrior's internal organs were crushed, and he died. The number of experts by Wang Chong's side increased to 4. Jingdian Zhuang Jingping, bring some men to gather the other examinees. Also, at the edge of the mountain where there's no one, start a few fires. The bigger the better. The bigger the fire, the darker the area that the flames can't reach, and the greater the impact on the master archers. Wang Chong suddenly turned to Zhao Jingdian, Zhuang Jingping, and the others. Master archers weren't invincible. Even though they could clearly see the apples on the apple tree several kilometers away, that was only during the day. At night, there were too many ways to affect their eyesight. Bonfires were one of the ways to do that. In theory, the brighter the mountain, the more dangerous it was to others. But in reality, the contrast between the brightness of the fire and the darkness would only make it darker, making it difficult to see one's silhouette. And the existence of the bonfire would unknowingly affect the master archers, regardless of whether they were paying attention to it or not. Master archers were still humans, not gods. As long as they didn't feel this urge, the chances of them being ambushed would decrease significantly, and their chances of survival would increase as well. Don't worry, we'll do it now, Zhuang Jingping said without any hesitation. Following Wang Chong's instructions, the group quickly left. This is my formation. Everyone attack according to this formation. Wang Chong drew a simple formation on the ground and passed it to the instructors and Imperial army guards. Understood. The crowd nodded. Wang Chong's formation was designed for the battlefield. In this aspect, they were much more receptive to it than Zhao Jingdian and the others. Leading the 4 Imperial army guards and instructors, Wang Chong continued forward. Wang Chong didn't make a move personally. Instead, he made use of the strength of the White Tiger Peak Imperial army guards and instructors to attack the Gogrian warriors who were fighting alone. The 5th, the 6th, after gathering a batch of Imperial army guards and instructors, Wang Chong's momentum was set. More and more Imperial army guards gathered around him. 7, 8, 9. Unlike the instructors and Imperial army guards who were severely injured earlier, most of the Imperial army guards that Wang Chong saved were still in their peak condition. On White Tiger Peak, intelligence was far more important than fighting prowess. Occupy that area first. Wang Chong stretched out a finger and pointed ahead. When he was ascending the mountain, he had seen clearly that there were 3 important locations on White Tiger Peak. These 3 locations were interconnected with one another. As long as he could occupy these 3 locations, he would be able to minimize the enemy's space to launch an assault. No matter how many enemies there were, they wouldn't be able to move freely. And the location that Wang Chong was pointing at was the first location. It was located in the middle of the mini palaces on the mountain. Even though it wasn't a foolproof location, as long as he could occupy it, he could use the palaces to block the sight of the enemy master archers. Secondly, he could make use of the walls of the palaces to minimize the possibility of attacks from all directions. It could be said that other than Chen Burang and Zhou Huang's room, this was one of the safest locations in the mountain. Everyone, sit according to his instructions. At this moment, The instructor whom Wang Chong saved turned to the crowd and instructed. Wang Chong's composure and magnanimity instilled confidence in the crowd. Without any hesitation, the Imperial Army guards and instructors followed Wang Chong's instructions. Countless giant wolves and tigers pounced forward swiftly and ferociously, but they were unable to stop the group at all. After killing another 3 Gogrian warriors hidden within the wolf pack, Wang Chong led the group to occupy this strategic location. On the left and right sides of this strategic location were towering walls that were more than a dozen zhang tall. The appearance of the 9 Imperial Army guards and instructors was reminiscent of a reef in the middle of a vast ocean. As though they had encountered a sharp boulder, the Turk wolf pack that was charging over from the foot of the mountain was immediately stopped by the group. The pack of wolves instinctively felt threatened. Countless wolves bared their teeth and roared as they pounced from all directions. But before the group, they fell to the ground one after another. The terrain played an important role. The moment 100 wolves entered the area, it was as though an ocean gushing into a river. At most, there would only be 8 to 9 Turk wolves in each direction. Following Wang Chong's instructions, the group was divided into 3 at the front, 4 at the back, and 2 in the middle who were responsible for providing support. Every single one of them stood firmly on the ground as though a nail. The unique terrain and formation made it so that even though there were many wolves, each of them could only deal with 2 Turk wolves on average. Given the strength of the Imperial Army, dealing with 2 Turk wolves was as easy as chopping vegetables. One after another, the wolves fell to the ground, filling up the alleyways on both sides. In just a short period of time, at least 60 to 70 wolves had died in the alleyways. Yet, none of them sustained any light injuries. While the group was stuck at this position, the number of wolves on the mountain decreased significantly. This alleviated the pressure on the Imperial Army, and they finally had a chance to catch their breath. In an instant, the situation on White Tiger Peak turned for the better. To think that such a small change could bring about such a huge effect. In an instant, everyone's trust in Wang Chong grew. Wang Gongzi, what should we do next? An instructor looked at Wang Chong and asked. We mustn't lose this location. Wang Chong frowned. After a moment of contemplation, he issued a new order. Clear up the wolf carcasses in the alleyways and fill up the rooms on both sides. This will reduce the pressure on our flanks. There were no more tiger carcasses left. Even though the number of wolf carcasses couldn't compare to that of tiger carcasses, as long as there was a sufficient number of them, they could fill up the rooms on both sides and turn this place into a new fortress. Quantitative change could eventually lead to qualitative change. Let's do as Wang Gongzi says. At this point in the battle, a glimmer of hope lit up in everyone's heart. In just a short moment, the situation on White Tiger Peak was completely different from before. The rain of arrows in the sky had thinned significantly. The fearsome master archers in the surroundings had suddenly retracted their arrows, as though fearful of something. On the other hand, without the cover of the wolf pack, the twin saber and 3 saber Gogrian warriors no longer posed as much of a threat as before. And all of this was due to the young man before them. Pu. With a kick, wolf carcasses were sent flying into the nearby rooms. In an instant, the 60 to 70 massive wolves filled up the empty rooms. Almost at the same time, a massive bonfire rose from the darkness, followed by a second and a third. Zhao Jingdian and Zhuang Buping's side also lit up. These massive flames lit up the periphery of White Tiger Peak, but at the same time, they shrouded the surroundings with a layer of darkness. The areas on the peak where the light couldn't reach immediately turned darker and darker. Well done! In Wang Chong and Su Hanshan's room, Chen Burang's eyes lit up upon seeing the bonfire rising from the darkness. Even the drenched and feeble Zhou Huang's lips curled up into a smile at this instant. With these bonfires, he would hold an even greater advantage in this battle between master archers. This child doesn't need my guidance anymore. In the darkness, Zhao Qinqiu wiped the sweat off his forehead as he stared at the bonfire in the darkness with a smile on his lips. Just like a rolling snowball, Zhao Qinqiu didn't expect Wang Chong's meager strength of an Imperial Army guard and 5 students to create a snowball effect on White Tiger Peak. Instructor Zhao, Wang Chong has asked me to invite you over. Chapter 210. Amidst the darkness, Zhao Qinqiu was astonished to see Wang Chong. After his and Su Hanshan's room, Wang Chong had actually built a second fortress on the mountain, using the corpses of the wolves to fill up the room, and using the wolf pack as his shield. Wang Chong's thoughts were as bold as a heavenly steed. After filling the metal cage with rocks, he had left Zhao Qinqiu in shock once more. However, what truly shocked Zhao Qinqiu was the manpower that Wang Chong had gathered. In just a few moments, nearly 20 Imperial Army guards and instructors had gathered around Wang Chong, as well as more than 30 students. So many people, Zhao Qinqiu was astonished. Furthermore, Zhao Qinqiu realized that the people gathered by Wang Chong weren't fighting on their own. There seemed to be some sort of pattern to their positions. This is a battle formation. Zhao Qinqiu recognized it immediately. This method allowed the 20 Imperial Army guards and instructors, as well as the 30 or so students, to form a cohesive whole. With everyone working together, they were able to unleash their greatest prowess while minimizing the threat and attacks they faced. Without a doubt, this formation allowed them to exert far more strength than the dozens of people here. The wolf corpses and Gogrian warrior corpses were the best proof of this. Wang Yan must have taught him this. A thought flashed across Zhao Qinqiu's mind. The Wang clan was a clan of ministers and generals, and Wang Chong's father was a famed general who guarded the borders. Given how knowledgeable Wang Chong was, it wasn't surprising for him to have such an ability. Wang Chong. Zhao Qinqiu walked over. The mountain wind howled. The youth in the darkness looked slightly pale, but he looked calm. Instructor. Hearing the voice, Wang Chong recovered from his daze. You're here. What business do you have with me? Zhao Qinqiu went straight to the point. Do you still have the strength to fight? Wang Chong said. Do you have a plan? Zhao Qinqiu immediately understood. Yes. Wang Chong nodded. Instructor, if I can think of a way to cover you down the mountain, I'll be able to help you. At close range, do you have a way to kill those Turkic archers? Are you kidding me? Sharpshooters are most afraid of close combat. Although their strength is not bad, they can't be compared to us, who are good at close combat. If we could really break through to their side, do you think that with our strength, we would still be in such a passive situation? Zhao Qinqiu frowned in displeasure. He had thought that Wang Chong had called him over for some kind of plan, but it turned out to be something like this. The current situation wasn't a matter of whether or not they could defeat those sharpshooters, but that no one could go down the mountain. When the sharpshooters had the advantage in numbers, the people here could only take a beating. Moreover, since the other party had come prepared, it was impossible for them not to guard against others descending the mountain. If anyone were to leave at this moment, they would surely be bombarded by the dozens of Turkic master archers and Gogrian condor archers. No one would be able to survive, and that included Zhao Qinqiu. Instructor, what if I tell you that I have a way to send you down the mountain safely? Wang Chong's long hair fluttered in the wind as he chuckled. If that's the case, I'll definitely be able to break through the blockade of those master archers. Zhao Qinqiu was taken aback for a moment before a cold killing intent flashed across his eyes. The greatest problem with White Tiger Peak was the lack of cover, making it easy for one to be ambushed on the way down. But if one were to break through this barrier, the forest would be filled with trees, rocks, and vines. At this point, the master archers would be the ones who would be restricted, unable to bring out the full might of their bows. However, that's impossible. I'm just saying that. In fact, we won't even be able to break through their blockade down the mountain. Zhao Qinqiu shook his head as he recovered from his daze. Of course it won't work under normal circumstances, but look over there. Wang Chong chuckled. Then, he raised a finger and pointed in a certain direction. A cliff. Zhao Qinqiu was taken aback. The direction that Wang Chong was pointing at was a depression, and beyond that was a cliff. Jump down from the cliff? Was this some kind of joke? Would he still be able to survive if he were to jump down from there? At such a high distance, even if it was him, he would definitely die. I've observed it during the day, and the slope there is the most gentle. More importantly, there are Boston creepers there. Without beating around the bush, Wang Chong revealed the answer to the riddle. Zhao Qianxiu was taken aback for a moment before understanding Wang Chong's meaning. There was a huge difference between having Boston creepers and not having them on the cliff. Wang Chong had observed it during the day, and the cliff was shady. Due to the lack of sunlight, there were quite a few Boston creepers growing there. From top to bottom, they extended all the way down. Now that dozens of master archers had sealed off White Tiger Peak, these Boston creepers could be used as a shortcut to descend the mountain. Furthermore, it wouldn't attract too much attention. However, this isn't enough. Even if there are Boston creepers, once they notice us, we'll be doomed. Unlike flat ground, there's nowhere to hide on the cliff. Zhao Qianxiu said seriously, as he began to consider the feasibility of Wang Chong's plan. Wang Chong chuckled. Without hiding anything, he revealed his plan. This plan is feasible. It's worth a try. After hearing Wang Chong's plan, even Zhao Qianxiu's eyebrows shot up in excitement. Wang Chong's plan might seem dangerous, but it was actually very familiar. From this, it could be seen that Wang Chong wasn't doing this on a whim. He had a comprehensive plan in mind. More importantly, this was the only solution they had at the moment. If they didn't deal with the dozens of master archers and Gogrian condor archers, they wouldn't be able to turn the situation around. On this point, Zhao Qianxiu shared the same opinion as Wang Chong. If they wanted to turn the situation around, they had to deal with the dozens of master archers on the periphery. A blazing flame suddenly rose not too far away, followed by a second one. The two massive flames danced and twisted, casting the area where the flames couldn't reach into darkness. At the same time, the twisting flames also obstructed the vision of the master archers on both sides. Hung long long. At the same moment the two flames rose. 3 to 4 massive black boulders fell from the cliff. Pu. Without any hesitation, a wave of wolf fang arrows fell from all directions. Following which, another wave of wolf fang arrows fell. Yet another wave of wolf fang arrows fell. The third wave, the fourth wave. After a few more waves, the master archers in the surroundings seemed to have noticed something. Unlike before, when every wave of arrows fell upon them, they were no longer like before. Instructor Zhao, it's about time. When you go down, curl up your limbs and descend for a period of time before using the boulders on the cliff to slow down the speed of your descent. After you descend, I'll continue to release a few more waves. As long as we make good use of them, we'll be able to reach the bottom of the mountain. Also, there are a few startled warhorses at the foot of the mountain. When you reach the bottom, you just have to pick one and chase the rest away. This will help you reach the position of the Turkic archers in the shortest time possible. The warhorses were discovered by the other students on White Tiger Peak, and this became an important part of Wang Chong's plan. The ivy on the cliff and the startled warhorses at the foot of the mountain. As long as Zhao Qianxiu made good use of them, he would be able to turn the situation around. I understand. Zhao Qianxiu nodded, under the cover of the two blazing flames. While Wang Chong and the others were tossing out the wolf corpses, he slipped into the crowd and disappeared without a trace. Instructor Zhao, take care. Whether we can turn the situation around or not will depend on you. Gazing in the direction where Zhao Qianxiu disappeared, Wang Chong quickly turned around. However, this wasn't the time to worry about Zhao Qianxiu. There were already many people gathered at the center of the palaces. With so many people, they would be a huge target. If a volley of arrows were to fall on them, they would suffer heavy losses. Wang Chong knew that on this mountain, no matter where, it was impossible to gather too many people. Now the second one. Wang Chong drew his sword and pointed it toward the second strategic point on White Tiger Peak. Everyone who saw the second strategic point that Wang Chong spoke of was astonished. That was because Wang Chong was referring to the massive white tiger statue at the top of the mountain. To Wang Chong, the area beneath the white tiger statue was empty. This was a natural place for him to hide from the arrows of the master archers. If a large number of wolf corpses were to be placed around the area, it would become the third natural fortress. More importantly, it would occupy the high ground. Without the slightest hesitation, Wang Chong led his men to successfully occupy the second strategic point. With the experience from the first time, the group moved even faster this time. In just a few breaths, they had already completed half of the defense, and a moment later, the second fortress was completed. By this time, more than 30 Imperial Army guards and instructors had gathered around Wang Chong. This was already a formidable force. As long as the Imperial Army of the Tang Dynasty were to gather together, as long as there was a safe haven, everything would snowball. There was no need for Wang Chong to worry about anything else. After pointing out the location of the third strategic point to them, Wang Chong sat down cross-legged. It's my turn to make a move now. Wang Chong's mind was in turmoil. After searching through the entire White Tiger Peak, he was certain that Wei Hao and the others weren't on this mountain. Wei Hao, I hope that you can hold on. With such thoughts in mind, Wang Chong quickly took out 2 pills that the Holy Emperor had bestowed upon him in the imperial prison. Initially, Wang Chong had planned to use these pills after he had completed one cycle of the 6-arm skill and familiarized himself with it. However, he couldn't wait for that time to come. With a gulp, Wang Chong swallowed the 2 pills. For a moment, hot air filled the air, and a huge wave of medicinal energy exploded from within Wang Chong's body. Wang Chong's face was flushed red, and his body was steaming hot. Soon a white mist rose from his body. The medicinal energy from the imperial palace's hidden pills washed through Wang Chong's body like a tidal wave. Without any hesitation, Wang Chong guided the huge wave of primal qi into the meridians and acupoints in his arms. Bang bang bang. With the support of the powerful external force of the pills, the sealed meridians and acupoints in Wang Chong's body opened up. The advancement of the 6-arm skill in a short period of time was equivalent to several months of hard work for Wang Chong. What a concentrated pill! As expected of the imperial pill of the imperial palace. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind. Without any hesitation, he drove the primal qi in his body to fuse with the medicinal energy and rushed it toward the meridians and acupoints. Boom! After an unknown period of time, Wang Chong's body suddenly jolted. The final acupoint of the 6-arm skill opened up. At the same time, a burst of cheers sounded. The Imperial Army guards and instructors that Wang Chong had gathered had successfully occupied the third strategic point. Chapter 211. Clang. Beneath the massive white tiger statue, Wang Chong abruptly unsheathed his sword and executed the single-character consecutive slash. Shua. With a flash of sword light, Wang Chong's 2 arms multiplied into 4 into 6, and in an instant, he seemed to have 6 arms. Hello! With a series of screams, the 6 Turk wolves around Wang Chong immediately fell to the ground. Shwa shwa shwa. Wang Chong's feet moved continuously in the midst of the wolf pack, executing the single-character consecutive slash to its limit. Pack after pack of giant wolves fell down one after another. Every time Wang Chong raised his Wuxia steel sword, 6 wolves would be slain. In a few short moments, rivers of blood flowed around Wang Chong, and the corpses of the wolves filled the area. The originally crowded mountaintop suddenly became empty. In terms of efficiency in slaughtering these wolves, Wang Chong was even more formidable than Zhao Jingdian, Zhuang Jingping, and the others combined. This was the efficiency of the hexad arms technique and single-character consecutive slash. Xiao. While Wang Chong was massacring the wolves, Xiao. A sharp whistle came from the night sky. In the darkness, a thick wolf fang arrow spun rapidly, piercing through the air and shooting toward Wang Chong. Careful! An anxious voice came from the distance. It was Chen Burang's. In the blink of an eye, Wang Chong abruptly turned his head around and saw Chen Burang poking his head out of the room in the distance. But a wolf fang arrow fell from the sky as fast as a bolt of lightning. Clang! 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 With no time to think, Wang Chong's Wuxia steel sword split into 6 and slashed at the wolf fang arrow. Boom! He didn't feel it when he was watching from inside the house, but when the swords and arrows clashed, Wang Chong truly felt the power of those sharpshooters. When the Wuxia steel sword struck the wolf fang arrow, Wang Chong felt as if he had struck an iron mountain. His hands were numb, and his throat was filled with sweetness. The Wuxia steel sword did not manage to break the wolf fang arrow. Instead, the huge force sent Wang Chong flying. Boom! Wang Chong slid on the ground for more than 100 feet before he rolled and bounced back. He suddenly slid into a cave that was about 40 to 50 feet deep at the top of a mountain, barely avoiding a calamity. That was close. Wang Chong slid into it, his chest rising and falling rapidly. This was the first time he had fought against those sharpshooters. Wang Chong was well aware that the reason he hadn't been able to break the arrow was not because the arrow was tough, but because the origin energy contained in the arrow far surpassed his own. An archer's cultivation was concentrated in each arrow, causing the origin energy contained in their arrows to far surpass the norm. It was simply not something that he could break with a single arrow. Swish! At almost the same moment that Wang Chong slid into the cave, a rain of arrows shot out from Chen Burang's room, heading in the direction from which the first arrow had come. At this crucial moment, Zhou Huang had finally struck. The area in the distance suddenly grew much quieter. There was no evidence, only intuition. Wang Chong sensed that yet another Turkic master archer had disappeared from the darkness. Swish swish swish. However, not too long after Zhou Huang made his move, countless arrows suddenly rained down from the sky, covering the area where Chen Burang and Zhou Huang were standing. This is a good chance. Wang Chong made use of Zhou Huang and Chen Burang's distraction to leap out of the cave. As he leaped out, Wang Chong flicked his sword toward the ground, and a few wooden planks flew into the air. Pung! An arrow suddenly flew over, shattering the wooden planks that Wang Chong had flicked in the air. On the other hand, Wang Chong made use of this strike to roll into a dark palace. The palace was densely packed with layers upon layers of wolf corpses. I'm safe. Kneeling on the floor, Wang Chong gazed outside and heaved a long sigh of relief. Even though he had made many preparations, White Tiger Peak was still in danger. I hope that Zhao Qianxiu and Zhou Huang can work together to neutralize the threat of the sharpshooters. Wang Chong stared at the door as his heart pounded furiously. Zhao Qianxiu's greatest advantage at the moment was that no one had noticed him yet. As long as he hid beneath the belly of his steed, he would only be able to travel several li. Those sharpshooters would be killed one by one. Zhao Qianxiu was the instructor in charge of imparting the art of commanding. Even though he hadn't revealed his true strength all this while, Wang Chong believed that as long as he was given a chance, he would definitely be able to overcome this situation. The entire hall was silent, and the commotion outside made the interior of the hall even more tranquil. Just as Wang Chong was contemplating the situation, a bizarre feeling suddenly welled up in his heart. Inexplicably, Wang Chong felt that the surroundings had become even quieter than before. For an instant, Wang Chong even felt that the sounds of battle, howls, and the crackling of flames had disappeared from his ears. Time seemed to have come to a halt at this moment, and the world fell silent. This is... Taken aback, Wang Chong slowly frowned. Instinctively, Wang Chong felt that the surroundings were a little unnatural. But the truly bizarre thing was yet to come. Initially, the hall was shrouded in darkness, and one couldn't even see their outstretched fingers. But in that instant, Wang Chong suddenly felt a green light rising from the depths of the hall. This kind of light shouldn't appear here. On the entire White Tiger Peak, there were blazing flames, flashes of lightning from swords, and the blood of dying wolves. But there shouldn't be any green light here. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind, and he immediately lowered his head. In that instant, Wang Chong finally noticed the source of the green light. It was right beneath Wang Chong's feet. A massive green arc of light had appeared beneath his feet. The arc of light appeared from one end of the wall, and after passing through Wang Chong, it disappeared into the other end of the wall. Taking a closer look, Wang Chong could see innumerable interweaving brambles within the arc of light. Amidst the brambles, there were images of swords and sabers, and they were evenly distributed among the brambles. Halo of thorns. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind, and he suddenly realized what this green light was. Halo. This was the halo of a true martial realm cultivator. On his left, separated by a wall, there was a true martial realm cultivator walking towards him. The two of them were only separated by a single wall. In that instant, Wang Chong suddenly felt a great sense of danger. The surging aura of death caused Wang Chong's scalp to go numb, and his hair to flutter in the air. Bang! In a split second, Wang Chong pressed his left palm on the ground, and with his head down and legs up, he became one with his sword and suddenly shot out, away from the direction of the halo of thorns. In the blink of an eye, just as Wang Chong shot out, boom! The wall to the left of the spot where Wang Chong was kneeling on previously exploded, and the halo of thorns on the ground abruptly materialized. With a loud howl, it shot toward Wang Chong, who was in midair. Chi, the halo vibrated, and the air was torn apart, as though it had been sliced by thousands of swords. The vibrating halo and the air emanated a powerful force, and it brushed past Wang Chong by a hair's breadth. If Wang Chong's reaction had been the slightest bit slower, he would have been struck by the vibrating halo and the sharp gust of air. "Lad, your reaction sure is fast." A coarse and wild voice suddenly sounded from outside the hall. This voice wasn't in the language of the Central Plains that Wang Chong was familiar with, but the voice of a Gogrian warrior. Boom! Before he could finish his words, 3 slender sabers shot out from behind the wall like pythons. The sabers spun, and with a momentum that could split the heavens and split the earth, they chased after Wang Chong and slashed at him in midair. In that instant, Wang Chong only had the time to raise his Wuxia steel sword before he was struck by the 3 Gogrian sabers. What incredible strength! In that instant, a mist of blood burst out from Wang Chong's arm. The strength that the Gogrian warrior exerted was reminiscent of a ferocious beast, causing the blood vessels in his arm to rupture. Boom! The wall shattered, and Wang Chong and his sword flew out from the shattered wall like a kite with its string cut, crashing into the alley behind him. "Gongzi!" A shout sounded, and Zhao Jingdian's figure appeared from behind the collapsed wall. Beside him were more than a dozen Imperial Army guards and instructors of White Tiger Peak. This was the second fortress built by Wang Chong. When Wang Chong flew out, the Gogrian warrior finally appeared in the main hall. His muscular body, disheveled hair, and the 2 weapons in his hands were his most distinctive traits. But what left one with the deepest impression was his pair of dark and vicious eyes. As if a wolf, they were filled with ambition and fighting spirit. The Gogurians were a race that excelled in both farming and fighting. Their lack of resources made it imperative for them to be skilled in farming, and at the same time, their lack of resources also gave them the instincts of a wolf, making them prone to plundering. Only by constantly expanding and plundering could they obtain abundant resources to satisfy themselves. The unique traits of the Gogurians were on full display, and this included the Gogrian expert before him. What kind of weapon is that? To think that it would be so formidable. In the main hall, the Gogrian warrior wasn't in a hurry to attack. He held a saber in each of his hands, and a third saber by his right side. There weren't many people in the Central Plains who could fight in such a manner, but at this moment, his 3 weapons had been severed neatly at the tip of his saber. They were severed by Wang Chong's Wuxia steel sword during the previous slash. Oomph! The Gogrian warrior tossed the 3 severed weapons to the ground. He pulled with both hands, and in the blink of an eye, he actually pulled out 3 long sabers from the sheaths hanging on his waist. To be able to wield 6 sabers at once, only the Gogurians were capable of such a combat style. Many experts of the Central Plains couldn't get used to fighting with the Gogurians at all. Ignore that, lad. Destroy the walls here, kill the Tang Dynasty Imperial Army guards, and kill that master archer. All obstacles must be cleared. More importantly, none of the students in this training camp can be spared. The Gogrian warrior ordered in Gogrian. Boom! A green halo of thorns lit up, and the air within a radius of several dozen zhang around the Gogrian warrior became incomparably dangerous. At the same time, the Gogrian warrior raised the 3 sabers in his hands, and in an instant, they morphed into a storm of sword chi that charged toward the group behind the wall. Behind him, more than a dozen Gogrian warriors leaped out. Their eyes were filled with savagery, and they held 2 to 3 weapons in their hands. Kill! With a furious roar, the dozen Gogrian warriors followed behind the Gogrian expert, charging toward the crowd behind the wall like a tidal wave. At the same time, behind the wall, the faces of the Imperial Army guards and instructors of the training camp turned cold, and they drew their weapons. Chapter 212. Hong Long. Like a volcano that had been suppressed to its limits, The dozen or so Gogrian elites clashed fiercely with the Imperial Army guards and instructors behind the walls. Sabers and swords clashed, and in that instant, sparks burst forth, lighting up the darkness. Hung long, the green halo of thorns tore the walls of the palace apart, as if they were made of paper. The dozen or so Gogrian warriors wielding more than 30 Gogrian swords created a storm of sword chi, suppressing the Imperial Army guards and instructors behind the walls in an instant. Howl! Wolf howls sounded. Behind the forceful opening by the Gogrian warriors, a group of ferocious Turks charged forward. Working together with the Gogrian elites, they charged toward the group behind the palace. Panicked cries sounded from behind the walls. Get into formation. Ignore those Gogrian warriors and kill those wolves first. Don't let them get close to the Imperial Army guards and instructors. In the blink of an eye, a voice echoed across the night sky, calling everyone back to their senses. Wang Chong was sitting on the floor with a hand clutching his chest. Fresh blood trickled down from the corner of his lips. That Gogrian warrior was simply too powerful. If not for his swift reaction, he would have long lost his life. But even so, Wang Chong's injuries weren't light. He felt as if his limbs were on the verge of shattering. But before he could even sit down to meditate, an intense sense of danger loomed over Wang Chong. The aura of death that followed him like a shadow left his scalp on the verge of exploding. There was no lack of experts among the Gogurians. In just a short period of time, they were able to determine the crux of the problem from the situation on the mountain and swiftly change their strategy. On White Tiger Peak, Wang Chong had occupied 3 bases. Of the 3 bases, the most important one, as well as the only one capable of protecting Chen Burang and Zhou Huang, was the fortress that Wang Chong had opened up. If this fortress were to be destroyed, Zhou Huang and Chen Burang would no longer have anything to protect them from the Gogrian warriors. If that were to happen, their deaths would be certain. Without a master archer like Zhou Huang, there was nothing in the entire White Tiger Peak that could threaten the master archers of the Turkic Khaganate. At that time, no matter how many people there were on White Tiger Peak, they would only be sitting ducks. If the other party was really able to do that, White Tiger Peak would completely collapse, and Wang Chong's previous efforts would all go to waste. Clang! A cold light streaked across the darkness like a waterfall, falling towards the pack of wolves. Whoosh! With a flash of the saber light, the 6 giant wolves were split into 2, their heads and tails falling to the ground. Wang Chong flashed again, executing the single-character consecutive slash to its limits. His feet did not touch the ground as he moved around the wolf pack. In the blink of an eye, pack after pack of giant wolves was killed. At the same time, the other trainees also reacted. Following their designated positions, they formed a simple battle formation and began slaughtering the wolves in the surroundings. With the support of these trainees, the group was barely able to withstand the assault of the Gogurians. Brat, you're courting death. Noticing the changes in the surroundings, a Gogrian saber pierced through the darkness and slashed at Wang Chong. The might of the saber was enough to topple mountains and overturn seas. If struck, Wang Chong would be severely injured even if he didn't die. Single-character consecutive slash. Wang Chong did not wait for the other side's saber to land, but he had already flipped over and retreated. You sure are fast. In the darkness, the Gogrian warriors drew their sabers and clashed with the Imperial Army guards and instructors behind the wall. Those fellows are too strong. At the back of the alley, Wang Chong was kneeling on the ground. His breathing hastened as he stared ahead unblinkingly. How's Instructor Su? Kneeling on the ground, Wang Chong asked without turning his head back. They can't come over. The Gogurians are attacking them at the same time. Even though they don't have as many people as here, the number of wolves is much greater. A student from the training camp asked. His name was Su Qi. He wasn't a scion of a prestigious clan, but he was extremely opinionated and courageous. After White Tiger Peak fell into chaos, he was one of the few who volunteered to help the others. When Wang Chong led his men to the second strategic location beneath the White Tiger statue, he left the students here to him. Back then, it was agreed that if anything were to happen, he was to seek reinforcements from other locations. The three sides faced off against one another. Wang Chong had intended to transfer manpower from other locations. But from the looks of it, that wasn't an option at all. Since the second strategic location was under attack, there was no doubt that the third location was under attack as well. The other party had thought things through thoroughly, not giving him a chance at all. Peng. Just as Wang Chong was contemplating over the matter, a sudden change occurred. Peng. An Imperial Army guard drenched in blood suddenly flew high into the air. While he was still in the air, a Gogrian saber was hurled toward him. The saber pierced through his left chest and exited through his back, piercing through his heart and pinning him to the wall behind him. In an instant, everyone's face warped in shock. These Gogrian warriors were far stronger than the others. It hadn't been long since the start of the melee, but an Imperial Army guard had already been killed. There weren't many Imperial Army guards and instructors here in the first place, and now that one of them had died, the situation immediately turned dire. A strong sense of danger immediately rose in everyone's heart. Su Qi, listen to me. Wang Chong suddenly called Su Qi over and whispered into his ears. Wang Chong, are you sure that you want to do this? Hearing Wang Chong's words, Su Qi gasped in shock. His face paled significantly. There's no other way. We won't be able to hold them for long. We don't have any other choice. This is the only way. Otherwise, when the Gogurians arrive to reinforce us, we won't stand a chance anymore. Wang Chong said. In the end, Su Qi didn't say anything. Instead, he led his men away. The mountain winds howled, and in the darkness, saber glints and sparks flew everywhere. There was more than one halo of thorns lit up among the Gogrian warriors. Even though there were some among the Imperial Army guards and instructors, the intensity of the halo of thorns couldn't be compared to the Gogrian warriors. At this point in the battle, not a single one of the Imperial Army guards and instructors around Wang Chong was unharmed. We won't be able to hold on for much longer. In at most 15 minutes, this fortress will collapse. We have to find a way to resolve this situation as soon as possible. Even though his cultivation was gone, Wang Chong's eye of discernment was still there. Wang Chong knew that if he didn't do anything soon, everyone here would die. His gaze swiftly swept across the battlefield, and soon, Wang Chong's eyes fell on the leader of the Gogrian warriors, who had assaulted him previously. In the darkness of the night, the halo of thorns around him was extremely eye-catching. 3 pitch-black Gogrian warriors darted about unpredictably, and under the augmentation of the halo, he looked like a human-shaped storm. Just him alone was enough to suppress the 3 Imperial Army instructors and guards. Of the entire battlefield, he possessed the greatest destructive power. Gao Feng, lead a team, and attack his left shoulder and ribs according to the formation. Wang Chong suddenly raised a finger and pointed at the Gogrian warrior on the battlefield. Understood. A resounding command sounded from behind. Nie Yen, lead a team and attack his right flank according to the formation. Aim for his crotch and legs. Wang Chong continued. Understood. A 17-year-old young man with a determined gaze replied with tacit understanding. Everyone listen to my command. Wang Chong raised his hand and stared fixedly at the other side. 3 Saber Stream was one of the strongest saber martial arts of the Gogurians. Together with another secret art, Duo Saber Stream, it was known as the 2 great martial arts of the Gogrian Empire. It was the most widely practiced secret art among the Gogrian warriors. Most people would be more proficient in using their right hand than their left. However, those who practiced Duo Saber Stream and 3 Saber Stream would have their left and right hands equally powerful. As such, they would often feel as though they were fighting against 2 or even 3 people simultaneously. As such, regardless of whether it was the Duo Saber Stream or 3 Saber Stream, they were extremely powerful. However, even though these secret arts were powerful, they weren't flawless. Wang Chong stared fixedly at the other side, not moving in the slightest. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Time ticked by, but Wang Chong still didn't give the order. Finally, just when the 3 Imperial Army guards and instructors were about to reach their limits, the leader of the Gogrian warriors began to wield his saber and charge forward. At that moment, Wang Chong finally gave the order. Do it! Wang Chong's right hand swung down viciously. Boom! Without any hesitation, Gao Feng and the other recruits led by Nie Yin leaped forward, and as though eagles hunting down rabbits, they struck the leader of the Gogrian warriors. Hung Long. The face of the Gogrian warrior warped in horror. In a flash of light, the green halo of thorns abruptly morphed into a green tornado and shot forward, blocking the attacks of the Gogrian warriors. Gao Feng, Nie Yin, and the others' weapons struck the green halo of thorns, but the only sound they produced was a metallic clash. It was as though the halo of thorns was a layer of resilient steel. Halo of blades, one of the halos of the true martial realm. It was also one of the most mysterious powers in the Central Plains. Those who possessed the halo of blades would have their origin energy burst forth, granting them the incomparably sharp properties of swords. Clang, clang, clang. The weapons in the hands of the Gogrian warriors only lasted for a moment, before they were sliced into two by the halo of thorns. In an instant, the faces of the group paled. Go to hell! A tyrannical voice in Gogrian echoed in the air. Now's the time. Just as the leader of the Gogrian warriors was about to launch a counterattack, Wang Chong, who was kneeling on the ground, leaped forward with a cold expression. Single character consecutive slash. In an instant, Wang Chong appeared before the leader of the Gogrian warriors. Making use of the moment when he was distracted, Wang Chong's woozy steel sword swiftly pierced toward the gap between the three sabers of the Gogrian warrior. Chi! A crimson gleam flashed, and the sword pierced deep into the body of the leader of the Gogrian warriors. Then, with a vicious tug, how is this possible? Chapter 213. Piercing Pain. An intense piercing pain. The ferocious and savage Gogrian warrior leader could hardly believe that he would be struck by Wang Chong's spear. Their targets this time were the Imperial Army guards and instructors of the training camps of the Tang dynasty. He didn't think much of a weak warrior like Wang Chong. More importantly, the three-stream saber was incomparably domineering. When executed, it felt like a raging storm. He had clearly intercepted the other party. So why did Wang Chong still manage to succeed? Pung! A heavy palm struck Wang Chong's chest, and as though a broken kite, Wang Chong was smashed into the wall behind him. The immense force of the palm smashed his entire body into the wall. At the same time, voila! The chest of the leader of the Gogrian warriors split open, and a huge gash of blood mixed with his innards flowed down from the wound. Wang Chong's hexad arms technique might seem like a single slash, but it was actually 6 swift slashes. These 6 slashes had already sliced the leader's innards into several pieces and severed his vitality. The 3 Imperial Army guards and instructors attacked him from the front, while Gao Feng and Nie Yin led the crowd to divert his attention. Under such circumstances, if they were still unable to kill him, then it would be impossible for Wang Chong to do so. Pooh! The corpse of the leader of the Gogrian warriors fell to the ground. At the same time, Wang Chong spurted a huge mouthful of blood and fell from the wall. The difference in strength between the two parties was simply too great. Even though Wang Chong was prepared for it, he still managed to injure his innards. If not for the fact that Wang Chong had cultivated the dragon bone art, making his bones, muscles, and tendons far more compact and resilient than an ordinary person, he might even have been jolted to death by the other party's final blow. That fellow is too strong. If I hadn't crossed blows with the experts of Goguryeo before and learned of the flaws in his 3-saber stream, I might not have been able to kill him. Wang Chong took out a healing pill from his bosom and swallowed it without thinking. At this moment, a cold and emotionless voice rang in Wang Chong's ears. The sound only lasted for a split second. It was so fast that it seemed like an illusion. Wang Chong was stunned. What's going on? That was the voice of the Stone of Destiny. He had heard it many times, so there was no mistaking it. Could it be that he had just done something that triggered something in the Stone of Destiny? Buzz! Just as this thought emerged in Wang Chong's mind, the scenery before him warped, and the scene where Wang Chong killed the Gogrian warrior replayed itself. Finally, it stopped at the moment when the Gogrian warrior fell. At the same time, the familiar voice of the Stone of Destiny sounded in Wang Chong's ears. Host has killed a warrior of the Goguryeo Empire, and the total amount of destiny energy obtained has exceeded 100. The conditions for activating the Bane of the Battlefield Halo have been met. Wang. Without any warning, with Wang Chong at the center, a powerful gale suddenly blew, and a formless energy gathered from all directions. Along with the energy gushing out from Wang Chong's head, it flowed into Wang Chong's body. Along with this surge of power, there was also an obscure message. All of this energy flowed through his limbs and finally into Wang Chong's dantian, forming a scorching ring-shaped energy sphere. Goguryeo warrior? The person I killed was a regular soldier of the Goguryeo Empire? Feeling the changes in his body, Wang Chong was stunned. But what shocked Wang Chong the most was the final sentence. Halo. This was the greatest secret of this world. It was also the greatest difference between the Tang dynasty and Wang Chong's memory. In this world, as long as one's cultivation reached true martial realm, there was a certain chance that one could gather the energy in one's body and form a powerful halo around one's body. The lowest level was the true martial realm's thorns halo. All of the halos were circles of cyan thorns with thorns growing out of them. The halo that the Goguryeo warrior Wang Chong killed possessed was the typical green halo of thorns of true martial realm. The same halo of thorns could have different attributes depending on the martial arts one practiced. For example, the halo of strength, the halo of charge, the halo of speed, and the halo of black iron. These were all the most basic halos. The halo of strength could allow a true martial realm martial artist to greatly increase their strength. The halo of charge could allow a martial artist to suddenly soar to an astonishing level within a short period of time, even though it could not be sustained. The halo of speed was usually combined with a warhorse. With this halo, regardless of whether it was a warhorse or a person, they could all reach an unimaginable level. They could truly move as fast as lightning, leaving ordinary warhorses in the dust. As for the halo of black iron, it was a basic defensive halo. With this halo, regardless of whether it was the armor or the physical body, they could all be strengthened to a certain level. Even if they were to be slashed by ordinary swords, they would not be injured at all. Furthermore, these halos were mostly used in the military and on the battlefield. If one's cultivation were to improve and reach the higher profound martial realm, these basic halos would evolve into the stronger halo of thorns. The properties of the halos would also be strengthened further, such as the halo of earth, halo of storm, halo of barrier, halo of strength, and so on. Further up, there were even more powerful halos. Let me try out the effects of this Bane of the Battlefield Halo. With a thought, Wang Chong activated the Bane of the Battlefield Halo in his body. Wang. No one on the mountain felt anything, but Wang Chong could clearly see a ring of invisible ripples spreading from his feet into the surroundings, enveloping a radius of 100 zhang. Even Wang Chong was astonished by such a large area of effect. Most primary halos only had an area of effect of 3 to 4 zhang, but his Bane of the Battlefield Halo was only at level 0. Yet it had already reached such a large area of effect. If it were to reach the pinnacle, wouldn't it reach an unbelievable level? In that instant, Wang Chong suddenly understood the meaning of the word Bane of the Battlefield. If this Bane of the Battlefield Halo is really as I imagine it to be, then it's truly inconceivably powerful. Wang Chong couldn't help but feel excited. However, something even more astonishing happened. After Wang Chong released the Bane of the Battlefield Halo, the green halo of thorns didn't appear beneath his feet, and nothing else happened either. But with Wang Chong at the center, the invisible ripples spread throughout the area of 100 zhang around White Tiger Peak, and something unexpected happened to the Goguryans. A faint white ripple suddenly appeared beneath the feet of some of the Goguryans. Even though not every single one of them had a halo of thorns beneath their feet, the strongest Goguryans all had it. As for those Goguryans who hadn't formed a true martial realm halo, a halo appeared beneath their feet as well. Furthermore, at the same moment when the white ripple appeared, their strength underwent a massive transformation. Seeing the halos beneath the feet of the Goguryans, Wang Chong immediately understood their identities. They were soldiers of the Goguryeo Empire. As for the others, They were probably wandering experts that the Gogurians had transferred over at the last moment. Inconceivable. In that instant, Wang Chong widened his eyes. All halos were meant to be used on oneself, be it the halo of charge, halo of strength, or the higher-tier halo of earth and halo of barrier. All halos would appear beneath the feet of the fighter who had cultivated it. In his 2 reincarnations, this was the first time Wang Chong had seen a halo that worked under the feet of his opponent. Unlike the halo of self-interest that he knew of, this halo was meant to suppress the enemy. If it had to be named, it would undoubtedly be a type of harming halo, or restraining halo. Chapter 214. What's going on? Why did my strength suddenly decrease? Why did my origin energy suddenly become so sluggish that at the same time, as soon as Wang Chong activated the bane of the battlefield halo, the ferocious Gogrian warriors within 100 zhang immediately sensed it? Some of the true martial realm Gogrian experts with halos immediately felt the halo of thorns beneath their feet weakening significantly. On the other hand, the Gogrian warriors without halos experienced an even greater change. Even though there wasn't any change, they suddenly felt as though they were being restrained by an invisible force, and the flow of origin energy in their bodies slowed significantly. It was as though a raging river had suddenly turned into a viscous mud. It was extremely uncomfortable. In a battle between experts, every second counts, needless to say, on such an intense battlefield. In an instant, the Gogrian warriors who had been suppressing the Gogurians with their ferocious attacks suddenly fell into chaos. Under the effects of the bane of the battlefield halo, the Gogurians began to panic. Everyone, including Wang Chong, noticed the abnormality occurring among the Gogurians. This is great. At this moment, the happiest person was none other than Wang Chong. The effects of the bane of the battlefield halo were far more formidable than he had expected. More importantly, no one knew that he was the culprit behind it. Kill! Roaring furiously, Wang Chong executed the single-character consecutive slash and became one with his sword. He was the first to leap forward, even though the others within 100 zhang around him had no idea what was going on. They knew that this was the best situation for them. Kill! Kill them all! Don't let them escape! Roused, the crowd gathered their remaining strength and launched a counterattack against the Gogrian warriors. At this moment, the fearsome Gogrian warriors seemed to have turned into a different person. The inexplicable weakening of their fighting prowess brought about a chain reaction. One after another, the Gogrian warriors fell under the assault of the Gogrian warriors. What's going on? Why is my origin energy suddenly going out of control? What did the imperial army of the Tang dynasty pull off? Send the signal. Have the master archers of the Turks shoot their arrows and kill them. Shocked and infuriated, the Gogrian warriors cursed furiously in Gogrian. In the blink of an eye, a roar that sounded like a dragon or a tiger suddenly rang out from the mountains in the distance. The roar revealed a monstrous rage, as well as venting one's desire. It's Zhao Qinqiu. Wang Chong was overjoyed. It's Instructor Zhao. Everyone do your best. Instructor Zhao has succeeded, Wang Chong said energetically. While saying those words, he slashed down 2 Turkic wolves with a wave of his hand. After which, he leaped forward with his sword and slashed at a panicking Gogrian warrior. The bane of the battlefield was only effective against the enemies of the Gogurians. Thus, Wang Chong chose to target the Gogurians within the white ripples. Come here, all of you gather here. Stop them, or else no one will be able to leave. A Gogrian warrior, who seemed to be the temporary leader, shouted anxiously behind him. Soon, with someone taking the lead, the Gogrian warriors managed to stabilize their footing and fend off the attacks. But in the next moment, a devastating blow came from behind a collapsed wall. Xiao xiao xiao. The shrill whistling of the air could pierce one's eardrums. In the darkness, dozens of Turk wolf fang arrows gleaming with a cold gleam shot out from the gap in the collapsed wall. But this time, the wolf fang arrows weren't aimed at the Great Tang army, but the Gogurians who were engaged in a fierce battle. Pu. 7 or 8 Gogurians were struck in the heart, and they fell to the ground like wooden pillars. Most of them were struck in the chest or shoulder by the wolf fang arrows, and the immense force of the arrows even pierced through their bodies, sending them flying 7 to 8 zhang away. At this crucial moment, Su Qi had finally led his men to clear out the wolf corpses in the palace on the other side of the alley. This palace was meant to fend off the attacks of the master archers of the Turks. It was precisely because of the existence of this palace, filled with wolf corpses, that everyone was able to fight in the alleyway unscathed. However, the palace also prevented Zhou Huang from providing support to the others with arrows. Wang Chong had Su Qi and his men clear away the wolf corpses in the palace, thus creating a path for Zhou Huang to shoot. Even though the threat of the master archers of the Turk had increased exponentially due to this, there was always a chance of survival. This is a good chance. Upon receiving Zhou Huang's support, Wang Chong was delighted. Pooh! A cold gleam flashed and fresh blood splattered. Wang Chong was one with his sword, and in an instant he leaped forward. The Wuxia steel sword in his hand pierced into the heart of a Gogrian warrior a dozen zhang away. This Gogrian warrior was already injured to begin with, and Zhou Huang's wolf fang arrow had left him severely injured. Caught off guard, he was instantly killed by Wang Chong's sword. Congratulations to user for killing 2 Gogrian warriors. At the same time, Wang Chong's vision blurred, and a surge of information flowed into Wang Chong's mind. The Gogrian warrior whom Wang Chong had killed was one of the Gogrian warriors chosen by the White Ripples. Who? A frenzied gale blew. An invisible energy surged from the surroundings into Wang Chong's body. Even though there weren't any obvious changes, Wang Chong could clearly sense that the bane of the battlefield halo in his dantian had increased significantly. Not only so, as ripples spread across the area, Wang Chong could clearly sense the radius of the bane of the battlefield halo increasing once more. This time, the radius of the halo had expanded from 100 zhang to 130 zhang. Under the effects of the bane of the battlefield halo, the area of effect of the Gogrian warriors had increased once more. In the surroundings, the Gogrian warriors, who were under the effects of the bane of the battlefield halo, felt the restraining force on them increasing once more, and they panicked even more. To think that the amplification effect of the bane of the battlefield halo would be so obvious. Sensing the change in the radius of the halo, Wang Chong was overjoyed. When he activated the Stone of Destiny, the bane of the battlefield halo he had obtained was still at level 0. This was the most primitive effect of the halo. Based on the information he had gathered, he had to kill at least 100 Gogrian, Turkic, Uzan, or Mengshi soldiers before the bane of the battlefield halo could reach level 1, turning from the white ripples into a halo. In the world of martial arts, this was equivalent to the difference between the ripples of origin energy tier 9 and the halo of true martial realm. Wang Chong had thought that killing 2 Gogrian warriors was just a drop in the bucket, so it shouldn't be of much use. Who could have thought that the effects of the bane of the battlefield halo would far surpass his expectations? To be able to cover such a large area, this is definitely a typical battlefield halo. In a chaotic battle, this halo would be able to bring out its full potential. Invigorated, Wang Chong immediately chased after the other Gogrian warriors chosen by the White Ripples. Wang, under the effects of Wang Chong's bane of the battlefield halo and Zhou Huang's arrows, the Gogrian warriors on White Tiger Peak were finally unable to hold on any longer. Retreat! Hurry up and retreat! Amidst the wolf pack, the ferocious Gogrian warriors immediately retreated down the mountain like a receding tide. This defeat was inexplicable. Until now, no one knew what was going on. But without a doubt, the most opportune moment for the Gogrian warriors to attack had passed. In an instant, a large number of Gogrian warriors retreated down the mountain. Beneath them, a large number of corpses were left. This is a good chance. Making use of this opportunity, a portion of them chased after the retreating Gogrian warriors, while the rest of the Imperial Army guards and instructors followed the passageway that Zhao Qinxiu had used previously and slid down the mountain. There were quite a few master archers lying in ambush around White Tiger Peak. Zhao Qinxiu's strength alone wasn't sufficient. Only by neutralizing the master archers would White Tiger Peak be truly safe. Instructor, those people have retreated. In Wang Chong and Su Hanshan's room, Chen Bureng's ears twitched, and he suddenly turned around to look at Zhou Huang with a delighted expression. Zhou Huang's relentless shooting, Zhao Qinqiu's ambush in the mountains, and most importantly, the defeat of the Gogrian warriors responsible for the assault on White Tiger Peak. The master archers of the Turkic army also realized that they had lost the upper hand. Thus they began to retreat. This is a good chance. Chen Bureng, tell them to chase after the Gogurians. Don't let them escape. With the two groups mixed together in the middle of the night, it's difficult for even master archers to identify them. This is the best chance for us to retaliate. As for those Gogrian condor archers who refused to retreat, leave them to me, Zhou Huang said with a bright gleam in his eyes. Yes, Chen Bureng quickly replied and left. Wang Chong descended the cliff. He knew that there was no need for him to worry about White Tiger Peak anymore. What Wang Chong was worried about at the moment was Wei Hao and Marchioness Yi. After tossing a few rocks, Wang Chong slid down the cliff stealthily. The arrows on White Tiger Peak were sparse. The master archers seemed to have retreated, and no one bothered with Wang Chong. Nay! Just as Wang Chong landed on the ground, the neighing of Nei's steed sounded in the darkness. Under the dim light of the night, Wang Chong could clearly see an incomparably dashing green colt charging up to him. There was a circle of white hair on the horse's hoof, which was exceptionally eye-catching in the dark. Little Shadow. Wang Chong was taken aback by the sight, and he was overjoyed. Little Shadow, I didn't think that you would still be alive. Wang Chong's white-hoofed Shadow was still in a free-range state, and it hadn't been equipped with a saddle, stirrup, or bridle yet. Thus, when the Turks and Gogurians attacked, even Wang Chong had no idea where it went. With so many Gogurians and Turks, a rain of arrows, and a pack of wolves, Wang Chong thought that the white-hoofed Shadow was already dead. But from the looks of it now, the little fellow seemed to be extremely vigilant. It had actually escaped in advance, dodging the calamity. Little Shadow, you came at the right time. It's time for me to borrow your strength. Wang Chong patted the white-hoofed Shadow's cheeks lightly, and the latter neighed excitedly. The white-hoofed Shadow was still young, and it shouldn't have reached the age to be ridden yet. But at this moment, Wang Chong couldn't care so much anymore. He had no idea how the Azure Dragon, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise bases were faring. Since he didn't know whether Wei Hao was alive or not, he could only borrow Little Shadow's strength to rush over. With a swift movement, Wang Chong leaped onto the back of his steed. In the next instant, the wind howled by his sides. Seated on the back of the steed, Wang Chong felt as if he was galloping at lightning speed. Fast! Wang Chong was astonished. In that instant, he suddenly understood why the white-hoofed Shadow was able to survive the night assault. Although it was still in its infancy, the white-hoofed Shadow's speed and strength were even faster than a mature warhorse. In fact, Wang Chong even felt that it was far superior to the Turk wolves. Chapter 215. Di-da-da. The white-hoofed Shadow galloped nimbly through the rubble. Even though it was just a colt, the capability it displayed was far superior to that of mature warhorses. The ability of the royal family to tame horses was on full display on the white-hoofed Shadow. As the colt traversed through the rubble and forest, Wang Chong didn't head for Azure Dragon Peak or Black Tortoise Peak immediately. He didn't know which base Wei Hao was at, and it was unlikely that he would be able to find him. On the contrary, on the Vermilion Bird Peak, which was the closest to White Tiger Peak, Wang Chong knew a few people. I wonder how Marchioness Yi and the others are doing. Wang Chong thought as he suddenly thought of Marchioness Yi and the others. Marchioness Yi was of the same generation as Wang Chong's second sister, Wang Zhuyan. Even though she had been messed around with by both of them, it was just a harmless prank. Marchioness Yi wasn't a bad person. Not to mention, she did remind him of Zhou Zhang's matter. In just a short moment, Wang Chong heard deafening battle cries. From afar, a massive crimson vermilion bird stood on the Vermilion Bird Peak. Beneath the crimson vermilion bird sculpture were layers upon layers of crimson palaces. However, it was different from what Wang Chong had imagined. The Gogrian warriors and wolves on the Vermilion Bird Peak were unable to advance any further than a certain distance from the peak. Not only that, an endless rain of arrows howled out from Vermilion Bird Peak, landing on the surrounding mountains. They were actually able to fight back and forth with the Turkic master archers, and they were not at a disadvantage in the slightest. Isn't this a little too exaggerated? Seated on the back of his steed, Wang Chong's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets upon seeing this sight. There were only 3 master archers in the Kunwa training camp. At most, there would only be 1 master archer on the Vermilion Bird Peak. But from what Wang Chong could see, it was as if there were 20 to 30 master archers on Vermilion Bird Peak, guarding it so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. However, Wang Chong was well aware that this was impossible. Just how many monsters are there on the Vermilion Bird Peak? Wang Chong muttered to himself as he subconsciously thought of Marchioness E and the others. If there was only 1 godly archer on Vermilion Bird Peak, then the other godly archers could only be the female students. At the very least, he was a true martial realm celestial expert like Marchioness E. Wang Chong did not know much about the female cadets in the 3 great training camps. He didn't pay any special attention to it. The only thing he knew was that the women in the training camp were different from the men. Most of the female cadets didn't like to fight hand-to-hand with others, so the proportion of females who chose to be archers was much higher than males in other bases. However, even though he knew, Wang Chong did not expect these female students' archery skills to reach such a level. It seems like there are quite a number of valiant women, like my second sister and Marchioness E on Vermilion Bird Peak. Wang Chong broke out in cold sweat. Not only were there many master archers, the number of true martial realm experts on Vermilion Bird Peak was also much higher than what Wang Chong had imagined. At the very least, it was much more than White Tiger Peak. At a glance, Wang Chong could see halos exploding on the Vermilion Bird Peak like fireworks, creating an incomparably dazzling sight. The overall strength of Vermilion Bird Peak seemed to be much higher than that of White Tiger Peak. Let's go! Without any time to think, Wang Chong urged his steed forward. Even though the overall strength of Vermilion Bird Peak wasn't too bad, and there were quite a few perverted women like Marchioness E, the strength of the Gogurians and Turks still couldn't be underestimated. Wang Chong hurried to the vicinity of Vermilion Bird Peak and dismissed the white-hoofed shadow. Then, he found a slightly lower slope and silently climbed up the peak. Wang Chong found an opportunity in the darkness, and so, he shot out from the flames. Shwa! Without any hesitation, Wang Chong released the bane of the battlefield halo in his body. A massive invisible ripple swept through the darkness, and in a radius of 200 zhang, the bodies of the Gogurians and Turks were abruptly covered in a layer of white ripple. Due to Wang Chong's interference, the momentum of the battle abruptly reversed. Before the Gogurians and Turks could react to what was going on, the halo of thorns beneath their feet suddenly weakened, and the flow of origin energy in their bodies turned sluggish. In an instant, the speed of their attacks was reduced by more than 2-fold. In an instant, the Gogurians and Turks were thrown into disarray. Pooh! Amidst the chaos, Wang Chong targeted a severely injured Gogurian warrior and pierced his Wuxia steel sword through his heart. Congratulations to user for killing 4 soldiers of the Goguryeo Empire. A familiar voice sounded by Wang Chong's ear. A powerful gale blew, and invisible energy gathered from the surroundings and gushed into Wang Chong's body. Wang Chong's bane of the battlefield halo grew stronger once more. Amidst the darkness, invisible ripples began to spread. Wang Chong's bane of the battlefield halo, which had already reached a radius of 200 zhang, began to expand once more. This time, it reached a radius of 250 zhang, enveloping even more Gogurian warriors. Pu. In an instant, a large number of Gogurian warriors were caught off guard and fell to the ground in a fluster. Wang Chong's appearance had disrupted their rhythm. Die! All of a sudden, a furious bellow sounded. Just as Wang Chong was about to kill the Gogurian warrior, a gust of wind blew by. A lady dressed in yellow palace robes with a face brimming with killing intent slashed her saber at Wang Chong. Damn it! I'm here to help you. Wang Chong's face warped in horror. As he spoke, he swiftly dodged to the side. Hearing Wang Chong's words, The killing intent in the lady's eyes suddenly cleared up. Just as Wang Chong was thinking that she wouldn't make a move on him, while he was on guard, pung! A palace boot with cloud inscriptions suddenly enlarged before Wang Chong's eyes. He only had the time to swing his sword to the side before he was sent flying. Men aren't good people. These were the words Wang Chong heard before he was sent flying. Damn it, aren't there too many courageous ladies on Vermilion Bird Peak? This was the only thought in Wang Chong's mind before he was sent flying. Judging from the strength he felt from her waist, this lady was at least at the true martial realm. How could Wang Chong possibly match up to her? Pung! Just as she was about to fly away, Wang Chong clearly saw a figure appear out of nowhere and send the woman in the light yellow court dress flying. Bastard, who allowed you to make a move on him? An icy, bone-chilling voice suddenly rang out. Then, a familiar figure appeared at Wang Chong's side, and with a tug, Wang Chong's body came to a stop. Why did you come here for no reason? Don't you know that it's dangerous here? Marchioness Yi's face was drenched in sweat, and her hair was plastered to her face. However, she seemed to be in high spirits. Her back was straight, and her eyes were bright. The Marchioness Yi before him was completely different from the one Wang Chong had seen before. She was brimming with unyielding fighting spirit. Pung! With a jab of her spear, a howling wolf pouncing over was impaled in the head by Marchioness Yi's spear before it could even react. Her movements were clean and precise. The battle on White Tiger Peak has ended, so I'm here to help. As Wang Chong spoke, he worked together with Marchioness Yi to fend off the wolves that were charging at them. White Tiger Peak has been attacked as well? A hint of astonishment flashed across Marchioness Yi's eyes, but she quickly recovered from her shock. With a cold face, she said, Since the battle has ended, you should just stay here. What kind of joke are you playing by coming here? With your meager strength, do you think that you can be of any help? If anything were to happen to you, do you know how anxious your second sister would be? If something happens, you don't know how anxious your second sister will be. At the same time, the purple spear in her hand was also moving at an incredible speed. With a casual flick, it created more than a dozen illusions. Pooh! A Gogrian warrior was caught off guard, and a golden spear tip could be vaguely seen amidst the green halo of thorns. Pooh! A Gogrian warrior didn't react in time, and was pierced cleanly through his heart. His corpse flew a dozen zhang away before falling down the cliff. This woman really hasn't changed at all. Even though this wasn't his first time seeing Marchioness Yi in action, Wang Chong still couldn't help but be impressed. Marchioness Yi's fighting style was extremely simple, devoid of any unnecessary movements. All of her movements were simple, but they were lethal. It was impossible for an ordinary cultivator to learn from her. That's weird. Why did these people suddenly become so weak? Marchioness Yi's perplexed voice sounded by Wang Chong's ear. Her beautiful eyebrows were knitted together tightly. As a true martial realm expert, Marchioness Yi's intuition and perception far surpassed that of an ordinary cultivator. The Gogrian warriors before her were flustered and flustered, giving her a completely different feeling from when they were locked in a stalemate previously. Marchioness Yi simply couldn't understand what was going on. Hearing those words, Wang Chong only chuckled. The debuff from the Bane of the battlefield was only applied to others, but it didn't affect him at all. At the very least, at this moment, Wang Chong didn't notice any debuff on him. Marchioness Yi, help me. Wang Chong's gaze suddenly fell on a Gogrian soldier amidst the retreating crowd. Beneath his feet, a white ripple could be seen clearly. Hung Long. Wang Chong and Marchioness Yi dashed forward, their spear and sword stabbing into the soldier's body simultaneously. Congratulations to user for killing 5 soldiers of the Goguryeo Empire. A familiar voice sounded by Wang Chong's ear, and in the air, a huge ripple spread outward once more. At the same time, the bane of the battlefield halo in Wang Chong's body also grew significantly stronger. 5 now, Wang Chong's spirits were lifted, and he was overjoyed. The bane of the battlefield aura could only be upgraded by killing the soldiers of opposing countries. Most of the soldiers in the army were in the true martial realm and possessed the halo of thorns. Given Wang Chong's strength, under normal circumstances, he wouldn't even be able to fight them one-on-one. However, With a true martial realm expert cooperating with him, the situation was different. At this moment, the Gogrian soldiers were exhausted, and they were all injured. Furthermore, under the influence of his halo, this was the best opportunity for him to upgrade the bane of the battlefield halo. Pooh. The sixth. The seventh. Thus Wang Chong chose those who were alone, exhausted of origin energy, injured and flustered. As for those who were in peak condition, he didn't touch a single one of them. Wang Chong wasn't greedy. With the bane of the battlefield halo, Wang Chong's contribution was unmatched by anyone else on Vermilion Bird Peak. Xiao. All of a sudden, a piercing whistle sounded, and a strong sense of danger rose in Wang Chong's heart. Wang Chong's body tensed up. A wolf fang arrow, harnessed with destructive might, was flying toward him. Not good, a Turkic master archer. Wang Chong's face warped in shock. Without any hesitation, he executed the single consecutive slash and dodged to the side. But a moment later, before Wang Chong could make his move, the most unexpected thing occurred. Pung! In the blink of an eye, a crimson arrow as thick as a pinky flew over from the top of Vermilion Bird Peak, knocking the wolf fang arrow above Wang Chong's head away. Hong Wang! A powerful gust of wind blew down from the sky, causing Wang Chong's robe to flutter wildly. Seeing this sight, Wang Chong was dumbfounded. Chapter 216. Those are the experts that Princess Enai Huang brought from the royal palace. Without such capabilities, how do you think we managed to last so long? By the way, the one who sent you flying with a kick was Princess Enai Huang's maid. Princess Enai Huang's temper isn't too good, so it's best for you to keep your distance from her. Marchioness Yi seemed to know what Wang Chong was thinking, and she replied without turning her head. The spear in her hand moved swiftly like a shuttle, sending a few wolves charging down the mountain flying. The tip of the spear pierced through the eyes of the wolves and out from the back of their heads. No matter how the wolves tried to dodge, the spear would still pierce through them and send them flying in the same manner. Princess Enai Huang? Hearing Marchioness Yi's words, Wang Chong was taken aback. Making use of the opening in which the wolves retreated, Wang Chong swiftly darted out. Turning around, he saw a majestic crimson halo revolving slowly on the peak of the mountain. In the darkness of the night, it seemed as though a massive flaming phoenix had appeared, a beautiful sight to behold. In that instant, Wang Chong seemed to have understood something. To think that there would be a legitimate princess of the royal family on Vermilion Bird Peak. This was something that Wang Chong didn't expect. The reason why Wang Chong came to the 3 great training camps was for the dazzling generals, so he didn't pay much attention to the princesses and princes of the royal palace. But thinking about it, there were indeed many members of the royal family who joined the 3 great training camps when it was first established. To think that there would be a princess on Vermilion Bird Peak. It's no wonder the Turks and Gogurians weren't able to obtain anything here. Wang Chong thought. The 3 great training camps strictly forbade servants and followers from entering. But from the looks of it, Princess Enai Huang wasn't bound by this rule. Wang Chong was well aware of how formidable the experts of the royal family were. Given that Princess Enai Huang had brought so many experts from the royal family into the training camps, it was no wonder the other royal families were unable to conquer the area. If Princess Enai Huang is able to bring experts from the royal family into the training camps, it means that the other royal families are able to do the same as well. In other words, this matter might not be as serious as I thought it to be. At this point, Wang Chong suddenly felt relieved. Princess Enai Huang was not the only member of the royal family in the 3 great training camps. With these people around, even if the 3 great training camps were to be ambushed while they were completely unprepared, the 3 great training camps would not be wiped out in one fell swoop. Kill! A series of battle cries shook the earth and the sky. In the distance, black shadow rabbits leapt up and swooped down, rushing over. Although they were a bit late, the Vermilion Bird Peak's Imperial Army guards and instructors still arrived at this time. Retreat! Retreat quickly! The faces of the Gogrian warriors warped in horror. Without any hesitation, they frantically fled into the mountains. Good chance! Wang Chong's eyes lit up. With a sway of his body, he activated the single-step consecutive slash and shot forward. Pooh! The Wuxia steel sword pierced through the back of a panicking Goguryeo warrior. Congratulations to user for killing 8 soldiers of Goguryeo Empire. Along with the voice of the Stone of Destiny, ripples of energy rippled outward. Wang Chong could clearly feel the bane of the battlefield augmenting once more. As time went by, the Goguryeo warriors who were still in the midst of escaping were affected even more severely. This invisible, yet tangible, binding force made the fleeing Goguryons even more flustered. What humans feared the most was unknown power. Up till now, no one knew why their fighting prowess had fallen so drastically. Kill! With the coordination of the two sides, the Goguryeo warriors suffered a crushing defeat. Congratulations to user for killing 9 soldiers of Goguryeo Empire. As Wang Chong's Wuxia steel sword pierced through the 9th Goguryeo warrior, who failed to dodge in time, Wang Chong's bane of the battlefield augmented once more. In this short period of time, Wang Chong had already killed 9 Goguryeo warriors, who were either at or close to true martial realm. Under normal circumstances, given Wang Chong's strength, he wouldn't have been able to kill a single one of them. But through this battle and the strength of a group, Wang Chong managed to kill 9 of them. Marchioness E, help me gather a few men. We'll head to Black Tortoise Peak together. Seeing that the Goguryons had already retreated, Wang Chong turned to Marchioness E and said. The latter frowned slightly. If it were any other time, she would have long smacked Wang Chong down for speaking to her in such a manner. However, times had changed. Knowing that the situation at Black Tortoise Peak was urgent, this wasn't the time to be calculative over such trivial matters. Fian, Donshue, you lasses, follow me to Black Tortoise Peak. Marchioness E beckoned to her back, and in the blink of an eye, 5 young ladies with auras similar to Marchioness E walked out from the crowd. Their eyes were bright and spirited, and it was clear that they weren't easy to deal with. On the other side, Wang Chong also headed to White Tiger Peak to welcome the group. He beckoned a few Imperial Army guards and instructors whom he was acquainted with, and together with Marchioness E, they swiftly headed to Black Tortoise Peak. Black Tortoise Peak was ablaze, and corpses could be seen everywhere. There were corpses of both humans and wolves, and it seemed like the Goguryons had suffered far greater losses than White Tiger Peak or Vermilion Bird Peak. Kill! Upon seeing this sight, the eyes of Wang Chong's group reddened, and they immediately charged up the mountain. At the same time, Wang Chong activated the bane of the battlefield halo to its maximum potential. Boom! The two forces collided, and the bane of the battlefield halo enveloped most of the Goguryeo warriors. At this moment, Wang Chong's bane of the battlefield halo was much stronger than before. When the bane of the battlefield halo enveloped the crowd, chaos broke out. Due to a miscalculation of the effects of the bane of the battlefield, 8 Goguryeo warriors were killed in an instant. Congratulations to user for killing 10 soldiers of the Goguryeo Empire. Wang! A huge ripple spread outward, and at this moment, Wang Chong's bane of the battlefield halo had already expanded to a radius of 400 zhang. This was an astonishing distance. Almost the entire Black Tortoise Peak was under the pressure of Wang Chong's bane of the battlefield halo. Under this chain reaction, the Goguryeo warriors on Black Tortoise Peak fell one after another. Everyone worked together and kill those fellows. A man who seemed to be the leader bellowed in Goguryeo. With a ferocious glint in his eyes, he gathered the other Goguryeo warriors to slaughter Wang Chong and the others. Yi! At that moment, a deafening howl sounded from the depths of the Chui Wei mountain range, piercing through the heavens. Upon hearing the piercing howl, the entire Black Tortoise Peak panicked. Even the Goguryeo leader had a look of unease on his face. This was the signal to retreat as promised. Hong long long. A deafening sound echoed from afar. Innumerable night birds flew into the sky in alarm. In the distance, after defeating the Goguryons, the experts of Vermilion Bird Peak and White Tiger Peak had gathered together and were making their way toward Black Tortoise Peak. Damn it! Retreat! 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 The faces of the ferocious Goguryeo warriors warped in horror. Even if they couldn't be bothered with Wang Chong and the others, they immediately fled for their lives, heading deeper into the mountains. No matter how slow they were, it was clear to the Gogurians that the operation of Vermilion Bird Peak and White Tiger Peak had failed. Without the master archers to seal the area, it was impossible for the operation to succeed. Kill! Just as the Gogurians were retreating, the entire mountain peak suddenly trembled. The Black Tortoise Peak that was empty and quiet a moment ago was suddenly filled with a large number of silhouettes, rushing down the mountain. Wang Chong was dumbfounded by the sight, and Marchioness Yi's eyebrows were also furrowed into a deep frown. Then, as though coming to a realization, she harumphed coldly. A bunch of cowardly turtles. To think that they would hide in the palace at such a time. It's no wonder they were assigned to Black Tortoise Peak. Her gaze swept across the group of fellows charging down the mountain with displeasure. Even if Marchioness Yi didn't understand them, she could tell that they had been hiding, waiting for someone to make a move. Wang Chong, Marchioness Yi, why are you two here? All of a sudden, a shocked voice echoed in the air. On the mountain peak, a round-faced young man in his teens dashed toward Wang Chong and the others. When he got closer, he realized that it was Wei Hao. Why are you two here? Wei Hao widened his eyes in astonishment. When he heard the commotion, he thought that the main force had arrived. He didn't expect to see Wang Chong and Marchioness Yi here. Humph, do you think everyone is like you, hiding on top of a mountain like a coward? Marchioness Yi said coldly. What coward? Don't spout nonsense. Wei Hao's face flushed red. It was one thing for others to say such words, but how could he tolerate being called a coward by a woman? We're just defending with offense. How dare you talk back to me? Are you asking for a beating? Marchioness Yi wasn't as patient as Wei Hao. Recalling how Marchioness Yi had stepped on him, a chill ran down Wei Hao's spine. He knew that this woman wasn't one to be reasoned with, and it wouldn't end well for him if he were to anger her. Thus, he quickly shut his mouth. In the distance, the Gogrian warriors had already been chased several dozen zhang away. The Imperial Army guards and instructors of White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise Peaks were in pursuit. With the crisis at Black Tortoise Peak resolved, Wang Chong decided to stop his pursuit. Don't chase a cornered enemy. Wang Chong knew his own situation, so he didn't dare to advance recklessly. Right, Wei Hao? I saw that the entire mountain peak is on fire, and even the palaces have been burned down. How did you all defend against such a huge attack? Wang Chong suddenly asked. From afar, he thought that more than half of Black Tortoise Peak had died. However, the truth didn't seem to be the case. This piqued Wang Chong's curiosity. Hearing Wang Chong's words, even Marchioness Yi turned her gaze over. The master archers of the Turks weren't to be trifled with. Even though Wei Hao said that they were hiding in the palaces, Marchioness Yi knew that those palaces couldn't withstand the arrows of the Turks. Hearing Wang Chong's words, Wei Hao's eyebrows danced in delight. The wolf fang arrows of the Turks might be formidable, but they can't do anything to us. Don't forget, we're at Black Tortoise Peak. Almost everyone in the base has a shield. If we gather together and form a shield wall above our heads, how can we possibly get hit so easily? Shield. Chapter 217. In an instant, everyone was rendered speechless. Black Tortoise Peak didn't have Princess Anai Huang, and it wasn't as offensively oriented as White Tiger Peak. In fact, it didn't even have a master archer like Zhou Huang. However, most of them managed to survive this wave of attacks, just by relying on the large shields that they had. At this moment, even the experts of Vermilion Bird Peak that Marchioness Yi had brought over felt that Wei Hao and the others were simply too lucky. Young general, that seems to be the son of the Wang clan, Wang Chong. While Wang Chong, Wei Hao, and the others were gathered together, no one noticed that on the peak of Black Tortoise Peak, a few Hu youngsters and a few Han were standing together, staring coldly at the scene below. Black Tortoise Peak was high, and from the top, one could easily see the surroundings. This included the Gogurians and Turks who were fleeing into the forest, as well as the pack of silver wolves that the Turks had ordered to stop the pursuers. The Turks and Gogurians had made quite a big move in tonight's assault. However, regardless of whether it was the Hu or the Han, none of their gazes were on the Turks and Gogurians. Instead, they were focused on Wang Chong. From the vantage point of the group, they could see the Gogurians fleeing into the forest at an incredible speed, as though a flock of beasts. However, none of their attention was on them. Instead, their gazes were on Wang Chong, Marchioness Yi, and Wei Hao. That lad sure is lucky. White Tiger Peak is located in the west, closest to the capital. As such, it's the direction that the Turks and Gogurians prioritized. Yet that lad is still alive. The young Hu leader next to the bonfire indifferently said. Origin energy pulsed around him, and a green halo of thorns slowly revolved around him. Countless wolf fang arrows fell around him, but none of them were able to get close. That night, for many people, was a night of nightmares and fright. But to the group by the bonfire, this was nothing more than a small game. Whether it was the Gogrian Condor archers, or the Turkic master archers. No matter how dense the rain of arrows was, not a single one of them could threaten them. The reason was simple. There had never been a single sharpshooter squad in the world that could threaten the true Tongluo people. The Tongluo were the best cavalry in the world, and they were the cavalry least afraid of bow and arrow. As the second son of the Hu great general Abusi, Abutong had been adept at catching arrows with his bare hands ever since he was young. Even when blindfolded, he was still able to do so. From start to finish, the Black Tortoise Peak's wolf fang arrows could not threaten him at all. Young general, now is the time of chaos. Should we? Beside Abutong, a Tongluo youngster made a slashing motion with a vicious glint in his eyes. Wang Chong's memorial discussing the Hu and Han had long been viewed as a thorn in the flesh by all the Hu. Countless who wanted to cut down Wang Chong's blade, and this was clearly a good opportunity. No. Unexpectedly, Abutong waved his hands and rejected the offer without any hesitation. If I'm not wrong, the woman beside him should be little Marchioness Yi. She's the only descendant of the only Marchioness in the Tang dynasty. In the Tang dynasty, those who are able to become officials and command troops as women are all lunatics. And that woman over there is a lunatic among lunatics. Even I don't have the confidence to forcefully make her stay. If the operation fails, we'll be left with an opportunity, and that will be disadvantageous to us. Abutong said. Clearly, he was fearful of Marchioness Yi. Marchioness Yi was different from Wang Chong. She was a true expert. If a woman was also famous in the capital. But young general, are we just going to let this matter rest? A Tongluo youth said with an unwilling expression. The Tongluo people had always been proud of their wolf-like nature, and they took pride in their aggressiveness. Swallowing their pride wasn't their style. Let this matter rest. How can that be? Why would I run to this Kunwa training camp instead of Xinwei training camp? There's still a long way to go, and there'll be plenty of opportunities to deal with that Wang Chong in the future. Abutong sneered coldly. Flinging his sleeves, he ignored Wang Chong and walked into the main hall of Black Tortoise Peak. The battle at Azure Dragon Peak ended shortly after Black Tortoise Peak. By the time Wang Chong and the others arrived at Azure Dragon Peak, the Gogurians and Turks had already received the news and left. Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise. The four divisions of Kunwa training camp were closely linked to one another, and the purpose of the four divisions was to watch out for one another. In truth, the battle had already ended the moment White Tiger Peak broke the stalemate. No matter how indignant the Gogurians and Turks were, they had no choice but to leave. It's finally over. At the foot of Azure Dragon Peak, Wang Chong's face was pale as he lowered his body and panted heavily. After fighting for so long, he had expended quite a bit of his origin energy and stamina. If not for the bane of the battlefield augmenting the prowess of every Gogrian warrior he killed, Wang Chong wouldn't have been able to last so long. But now that everything was finally over, all that was left was to clean up the mess. A gust of wind blew across the pitch-black sky, while Wang Chong, Marchioness Yi, Wei Hao, and the others were clearing the corpses on the Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise Peaks. None of them knew that a pair of eyes was silently observing them from the depths of the darkness. Observing the Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise camps, as well as the entire Kunwa training camp. No one knew how long he had been standing there, but without a doubt, from the start to the end, not a single thing had escaped his eyes. Are you ready? In the darkness, that person stood on a boulder with his hands behind his back and asked. His voice was cold and authoritative, devoid of any emotion. In the darkness of the night, the faint starlight shone on his body, vaguely reflecting the shape of the armor of the Tang dynasty. We're ready. The feathered forest, imperial forest, soaring serpent, mirage dragon, and black tortoise are all ready. None of the Turk master archers, Gogrian warriors, and Turk wolves will be able to escape. In the darkness, a young figure knelt on the ground respectfully, but the words he spoke were earth-shattering. If Wang Chong were here, he would surely be shocked. The feathered forest, imperial forest, soaring serpent, mirage dragon, and black tortoise were all imperial army soldiers of the royal palace. All along, Wang Chong and the others thought that the news of this night assault had been sealed off by the Turk master archers. But from the looks of it now, it seemed like the royal palace had long known about it. Very good. Send down the order, kill everyone, leave no one alive. Especially those master archers, don't let a single one escape. Since the Eastern and Western Turkic Khaganate and Goguryeo have sent so many master archers and condor shooters, it would be inexcusable of us to turn them down. That person said coldly, and there was a hint of coldness in his voice. If Zhao Qianqiu were here, he would surely be shocked. That was because the person before him was the one who told him that he would return to the capital to report to the Holy Emperor. Yet he didn't return to the royal palace. Instead, he chose to hide here. The order was swiftly passed down. In the surroundings, shrouded in the darkness, in a place where no one could see, another battle was underway. This battle was far more violent and swift than the night assault. There was no stalemate, nor was there a prolonged battle. It was a one-sided massacre. Perhaps it shouldn't be called a battle. More accurately, it was a harvest that had been prepared beforehand. Lord, aren't we being a little too cruel? Finally, after the order was passed down, the young figure kneeling on the ground could not help but speak. Cruel? On the protruding rock of the towering mountain peak, the person was slightly startled, as if he didn't understand. 100 master archers and several hundred Gogrian warriors. Actually, all of this could have been avoided. Why didn't we inform them of the news we received? Those students are still children, and they aren't at the age to step onto the battlefield. Aren't we being a little too cruel to them? The young figure said. Only those who were deeply involved in the battle would understand what kind of battle it was. Even though this ambush had caught many people off guard, resulting in them suffering heavy losses in an instant, they still suffered heavy casualties. In the battle that followed, there were many casualties as well. The Gogurians and Turks had made their move discreetly, and they had planned it for a long time. The timing they chose wasn't too bad either. But to the Tang dynasty, this operation wasn't that secretive. The 3 great training camps were only 20 li away from the capital, and the furthest one was only 40 li away. With such a short distance, how could the capital not know of it? From the very start, this ambush wasn't a secret at all. Even though the Turks had been extremely careful, spending a lot of time and effort to sneak the grassland wolves through the northern checkpoint, they still weren't able to escape the eyes and ears of the royal court. Even so, the royal court didn't seem to intend to expose them. Not only did they not stop them, they even allowed the Turks and Gogurians to infiltrate the 3 great training camps. Are you pitying them? In the darkness, that person asked emotionlessly. Yes, the young figure replied with gritted teeth. Have you heard of the death quota for the 3 great training camps? That person asked. Wang. In the darkness, the young figure was confused for a moment before he suddenly thought of something. His body trembled, and he abruptly raised his head. Lord, do you mean that? You can't possibly think that I can make the decision on such a huge matter alone, right? That person said. Lord, do you mean that the Holy Emperor? On the ground, the young figure's face paled. It's good that you understand. There is a death quota for the 3 great training camps. And as long as the quota is exceeded, we will appear immediately. And now, the casualties are still within the range of the death quota. Chapter 218. In this night raid, Kunwa 4 camps, Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird and Black Tortoise, had lost at least 50 men each. It would only be more, not less. The other two great training camps, Longwei and Shinwei, were in a similar situation as well. In total, the three great training camps had lost at least 600 men. With so many casualties, it was no wonder that the losses were severe. Yet, the Lord before him said that this number was still within the range of the death quota. In that instant, the young man felt a completely different feeling. The existence of the death quota wasn't a secret in the three great training camps. All along, he thought that the death quota would only be 2 or 3, or at most 20 to 30. But at this moment, he realized that he had severely underestimated this name list. He did not know why, but when he heard those words from the Lord he respected, he suddenly felt an incomparable fear in his heart. The might of the heavens was fearsome. This was the only thought in his mind. What the royal court needs are wolves, not sheep. On this point, His Majesty and I share the same thoughts. War isn't a game. This night raid might seem cruel in your eyes, but in the eyes of His Majesty and I, it's already the greatest mercy. From the darkness, the Lord's voice sounded. Several hundred master archers, several hundred Gogrian warriors, and a few Turkic wolves in the northern plains. This little bit of strength is insignificant in the face of the true cruelty of the battlefield. If they can't survive this night raid, they will be even less likely to survive on the larger and crueler battlefield in the future. At the very least, dying here is better than dying on the battlefield in the future. At the very least, their corpses will remain intact. The sooner they understand this, the better it will be for them. This is also the reason why His Majesty and I allowed them to sneak into the three great training camps and launch an attack despite knowing about this night attack. Even though the three great training camps have lost 500 to 600 students, in the future, there will be even more who will survive because of them. This is the first lesson that His Majesty and I are going to teach them. The Lord's voice was calm and composed. From start to finish, it felt as though he had everything under control. Do you know that Zhao Qinqiu obtained a dozen tigers from His Majesty to teach his students a lesson? Ah, the latter looked surprised. This is the fierce tiger that we gave to the students, that person said with a meaningful tone. The young figure was finally speechless. Report. In the midst of the silence, a rustling sound suddenly came from the forest. In the blink of an eye, an Imperial Army general dressed in heavy armor walked out from the dense shrubs. A thick murderous aura emanated from his body. The mountain breeze blew past. Before he even got close, the two of them could smell the thick stench of blood on his body. Reporting to the two lords, all of the Gogurians and Turks have been eliminated. Other than a single Gogrian who managed to escape our encirclement, none of the others survived. The commander of the Imperial Army, who appeared later, knelt on one knee on the ground. His voice was sonorous and forceful. Drops of thick blood gathered from the gaps in his armor and dripped onto the grass. The battle ended much faster than anyone could have imagined. Under the combined might of 6 Imperial Army members, there was no one who could have survived. The Gogurians and Turk master archers didn't even have the chance to launch a proper attack before they were annihilated. To think that he still managed to escape. In the darkness, the person on the boulder suddenly let out a long sigh. But it only took an instant for him to regain his senses. Pass down my order to clean up all traces of the battle. We mustn't leave any traces behind, including bloodstains. We mustn't let anyone know that we made a move here. Yes, Lord. The Imperial Army general quickly responded and left. Li Tong, you should leave as well. Inform His Majesty that that person has already escaped. He turned his head and looked at the young man still kneeling on the ground. It was Li Tong. But Lord, we haven't confirmed it yet, right? Li Tong lifted his head. Only he knew that other than exterminating the Turks and Gogurians, the mission tonight was to capture an important person. That person was still able to escape from the encirclement of 6 Imperial Army members. Do you think that an ordinary person is capable of such a feat? There's no need to look anymore. That person has already escaped. That Gogrian sure is cunning. The commander on the boulder said as he swiftly left, disappearing from sight. Behind him, Li Tong hesitated for a moment before leaving as well. The entire mountain peak was empty, and a gentle breeze blew past. To the people of the 3 great training camps, what had happened here was bound to be a secret. No one would know of the appearance of the 6 Imperial Army members. Even more so, no one would know that these 3 people had appeared here. Pung! A huge wolf corpse with a hideous appearance fell straight down the cliff in a straight line in the wild wind. At the foot of the mountain, corpses were piled up like a mountain. The azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird and black tortoise were piled with corpses. If they weren't dealt with quickly, the stench of corpses would spread, and within 3 days, these mountains would become uninhabitable. The battle had already ended, but there was still a long way to go. At this moment, everyone was busy dealing with the corpses, including Wang Chong and Wei Hao. Even Marchioness Yi and the other ladies had joined in. Wang Chong, don't you find those women terrifying? Amidst the crowd, Wei Hao nudged Wang Chong lightly with his elbow and whispered. Wang Chong followed Wei Hao's gaze and saw Marchioness Yi and the others. You must be tired of living. If they hear you, you'll suffer. Think about how Marchioness Yi would stab you with her spear. It can't be that you want to be stabbed by her, right? Wang Chong chuckled. Wei Hao's face turned cold, recalling how Marchioness Yi and the others were able to kill them with their spears. He felt goosebumps rising all over his body. Bastard! How dare you scare me? But soon, Wei Hao recovered from his shock and knocked into Wang Chong. Hee, who asked you to be so spineless? You left me alone in the day. Wang Chong said. You can't blame me for that. Didn't I lose to them? Upon hearing Wang Chong's words, Wei Hao immediately felt embarrassed. Wang Chong didn't hold it against Wei Hao. Instead, he raised his head and glanced at Marchioness Yi and the others. At the same time, Wang Chong fell into deep thought. Even though Wei Hao described Marchioness Yi and the others as savage, arrogant and fearless, that wasn't how Wang Chong felt. Even though they were clearing the corpses like the others, it was clear from their expressions that they were extremely uncomfortable. In fact, they were even on the verge of throwing the corpses away. This was a stark contrast to their image as war goddesses. Just as he was deep in thought, Wang Chong suddenly caught sight of something that made his heart skip a beat. Wei Hao, wait a moment. Put the corpses down. Wang Chong suddenly stopped Wei Hao. Why? Are you interested in corpses as well? Wei Hao had a teasing look on his face. Chila. However, Wang Chong didn't play around with Wei Hao. Instead, he walked over, grabbed the black pants of the Gogrian warrior, and tore it forcefully. Chila. In the next instant, a bizarre tattoo appeared on the right leg of the Gogrian warrior. Upon seeing this tattoo, Wei Hao's expression also warped. Putting away his playful thoughts, he put down the corpse and walked over. It was a circular tattoo, and within it was a snake and a golden crow. The scaled snake was at the bottom, and the golden crow was at the top. When their eyes met, there was an indescribably bizarre feeling. This is the symbol of some power? Wei Hao's reaction wasn't slow either. Wang Chong didn't say a word. Instead, he stared intently at the symbol as a thought flashed through his mind. He recognized this symbol. Initially, Wang Chong thought that this night assault was just a simple alliance between the Gogurians and Turks to probe the 3 great training camps and lower the morale of the Tang dynasty. But upon seeing this symbol, Wang Chong realized that his thinking was too simple. King Sojuram. Looking at the bizarre tattoo, a name flashed across Wang Chong's mind. Even though the Eastern and Western Turkic Khaganate and Uzun had attracted all of the attention of the Tang dynasty, the Gogrian Empire in the East had never let up on its intelligence gathering on the Tang dynasty. And King Sojuram was Goguryio's spy king in the Tang dynasty, a thorn that Gogrian King Yengasemin had planted in the Central Plains. Even though he wasn't of noble birth, it was rumored that Gogrian King Yengasemin had conferred him as a member of the royal family, and the title King Sojuram was coined by Yengasemin. From this, it could be seen how highly the king regarded him. And this golden crow and snake tattoo was the symbol of his subordinates. Even though his job was to gather intelligence, King Sojuram's deeds in the capital were far more than that. Sabotage, assassinations, anything that could damage the Tang dynasty and benefit Gogrian, he would do them all. His most infamous deed was the assassination of a high-ranking official of the Central Plains. Almost all of the officials in the royal court, who had advocated for war against Gogrian, had been assassinated by him. This assassination wasn't limited to the person in question, but the maids, servants, women and children in the residence as well. Censor Tang Zhao, who had advocated for war against Gogrian, died in his hands. Not a single person in the residence was spared. This incident had once caused a huge uproar in the Tang dynasty 8 years ago. Even though the royal court was infuriated, and many of the Gogrian spies were captured and executed. However, the mastermind behind the assassination, King Sojurem, was never caught. The reason was simple. No one had seen him before, and no one knew what he looked like. Even the name King Sojurem was only known through bribing the officials of the Gogrian Empire. As for his appearance, no one knew anything at all. All they knew was that he was fluent in the language of the Central Plains, and he was extremely familiar with the Tang dynasty, just like a Han. Even if they were to meet face to face, it would be impossible to tell whether he was a Han or a Gogrian. To think that it would be him. Chapter 219. It's no wonder the Turks and Gogurians would collude together. And it's no wonder there are regular Gogrian soldiers here. If he's involved, everything can be explained. Wang Chong frowned, and his expression slowly turned grim. In the Tang dynasty, King Sojurem was nothing more than a thorn in their side. This night raid wasn't his first operation in the Central Plains, and it wouldn't be his last either. Wang Chong knew that the other party would do something even greater in the future. To the Tang dynasty, King Sojurem was definitely a threat. I have to find a way to get rid of him, Wang Chong said to himself, a hint of killing intent flashing through his eyes. King Sojurem was an extremely cunning person. The empire had been trying to capture him for quite some time now, but it had never succeeded. Even though the royal court had laid down an inescapable net, King Sojurem still managed to escape successfully and return to the Goguryeo Empire. His feats could be said to be a legend in the Goguryeo Empire. But to a member of the Tang dynasty, King Sojurem was an enemy of the empire, and he had to be killed. King Sojurem's movements were elusive, and it was nigh impossible to track him down. However, this wasn't the case for Wang Chong. Just that he was still too weak at the moment, and before he had absolute confidence, Wang Chong didn't dare to make a move recklessly. Otherwise, if he were to alert King Sojurem, it would be even more difficult to capture him. The night passed peacefully. The corpses on the Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise peaks took more than 4 hours to clean up. All traces of blood and dirt were removed. It was as if nothing had happened at all. Only the dilapidated palaces that were riddled with holes, and the traces of burning houses, told of the intense battle that had taken place earlier. After parting ways with Marchioness Yi and Wei Hao, Wang Chong returned to White Tiger Peak alone. By the time Wang Chong arrived at White Tiger Peak, it had already regained its peace. In the darkness, a bunch of bonfires burned on the mountain peak. Waves of low sobbing could be faintly heard in the night, causing Wang Chong to feel extremely sorrowful in his heart. Many of these people have never been on a battlefield in their entire lives. They have never seen blood, or fought with their bare hands. I'm afraid that many of them will never forget what happened tonight. Wang Chong thought to himself. He had been on the battlefield before. After decades of killing, he was already used to the sight of blood and death. That was why he was able to react so quickly, and not panic during this night attack. But these people were different. Wang Chong knew that it was already a huge improvement for them to be able to muster the courage to face the Gogurians head-on. Although Wang Chong sympathized with him, he didn't say anything. Because Wang Chong knew that the future would only be crueler. Only by learning to adapt would they be able to survive. Returning to his room, he saw a familiar figure plucking out the broken arrows on his body. Before Wang Chong could even walk over, he could already smell the pungent stench of blood. Su Hanshan's body was crimson, as though dripping with blood. His plain robe had been soaked in blood, and it had already been dyed red. This fellow. Wang Chong's eyebrows shot up as he finally recovered from his daze. Even though he didn't see it personally, Wang Chong could sense that Su Hanshan must have gone through a bloody battle. How many people did he kill for his robe to be so red? Wang Chong thought. Su Hanshan had charged out earlier than him, and joined the battle earlier than him. But when Wang Chong charged out, he didn't see Su Hanshan's figure on White Tiger Peak. But the bloody robe on Su Hanshan wouldn't lie. That person's fighting style was a complete mystery. Pooh! In the room, Su Hanshan only took a glance before retracting his gaze. Su Hanshan grabbed the arrowhead with his right hand and pulled it out forcefully. Pooh! Blood spurted out. But Su Hanshan's expression didn't change much. His face only paled slightly, as if this broken arrow had struck someone else. This is for you. It'll help with your injuries. Wang Chong took out a white recovery pill and tossed it over. However, Su Hanshan flicked his finger, and with a paw, the pill accurately bounced back to Wang Chong. I don't need it. Su Hanshan's expression was cold as he used this method to express his stance. You really haven't changed at all. Wang Chong chuckled. Keeping the pill, he sat down cross-legged. He had expended a lot of energy in this battle, and it was time for him to recuperate. Lord! By the time Shenwei, Longwei, and Kunwa training camps had calmed down, in a courtyard in the south of the capital, a phantom suddenly appeared. Like specters, black silhouettes began gathering from all directions. Their bodies were agile, and their speed was on par with the Japanese assassin Miyasame Ayaka by Wang Chong's side. The three black sabers hanging by their waists clearly revealed their identity. They were a group of Gogrian assassins. The residence was silent, and it was pitch black. Amidst the chirping of cicadas, a single light was lit in the room to the north. Under the dim light, an inhumanly distorted silhouette could be seen. A powerful aura emanated from the room through the paper window. Everyone was as quiet as cicadas in winter, not making a sound. The mission has failed. Pass down my orders. For the time being, everyone is to hide. Make sure not to attract the attention of the Tang dynasty. A hoarse voice came from the room. It was hard to tell if it was a man or a woman. Yes. Outside the room, everyone nodded without the slightest change in their expressions. The Three Great Training Camps was a project designated by the Holy Emperor of the Tang dynasty, and it had caught the attention of the entire royal court. Since they dared to ambush the students in the middle of the night, they had to be prepared to die there. Everyone was already prepared for this, so they weren't surprised. Also, I want you all to investigate the Kunwa training camp. There's a White Tiger Peak among them, and I want to know the information on all the students on that peak. The hoarse voice suddenly changed and issued a new order. Everyone was slightly surprised. They couldn't understand why the Lord would still be interested in a mere White Tiger Peak, even though the mission had already ended. Yes, Lord. Even though they were perplexed, they still acknowledged the order. Go! The moment those words were spoken, all of the Gogrian assassins in the residence immediately scattered. The light in the room to the north was extinguished with a gust of wind, and the residence was plunged into darkness once more. White Tiger Peak is too bizarre. No matter what, I have to get to the bottom of it. An indistinct voice sounded in the darkness, but it soon vanished. Time slowly passed, and the matter regarding the three great training camps soon spread. The sky had just begun to brighten, and the entire imperial court was like a precise instrument, rumbling as it began to move. Bureau of Military Personnel, Bureau of Punishments, the military. All of the departments were mobilized, and even the Chamberlain of Dependencies was involved. The compensation for the dead students of the three great training camps, and the strategy to deal with the Gogurians and Turks were matters that had to be discussed by the royal court. However, these were matters that ordinary people would never be able to come into contact with. This was destined to be a turbulent day. Kunwa Training Camp, White Tiger Peak. After an unknown period of time, Wang Chong finally awoke from his tranquil state. After a night of cultivation, Wang Chong could clearly feel the origin energy in his body recovering to its peak. In fact, even the injuries he suffered in the battle had mostly recovered. I'm still too weak. I have to find a way to raise my cultivation as soon as possible. Wang Chong thought to himself as he awoke from his stupor and recalled the battle last night. The Wuxia steel sword was sharp beyond compare. But on at least 2 occasions, Wang Chong's Wuxia steel sword was blocked. The first time, it was struck by the wolf fang arrow of a Turk master archer, and the second time, it was repelled by the origin energy astral might of a Gogrian warrior. It wasn't that the Wuxia steel sword wasn't sharp enough, but that the disparity in strength between Wang Chong and the Wuxia steel sword was too great, and he wasn't able to bring out the full might of the Wuxia steel sword. I have to find some time to cultivate properly, Wang Chong thought. Just as Zhang Xian was deep in thought, a bizarre feeling suddenly welled up in his heart. This was a hidden killing intent. If not for the fact that the sun had just risen, and everything was still, Wang Chong might not have noticed it. What surprised Wang Chong the most was that this weak killing intent actually came from his bosom. What's going on? Wang Chong's eyebrows shot up in astonishment. After a moment of silence, Wang Chong reached into his bosom in the direction he felt. In the next instant, a cold and hard sensation came from his fingertips. This is... Wang Chong's entire body froze in shock. A chess piece. The source of the killing intent was actually the white chess piece that So Yung-sun had given to him in Wang Chong's bosom. With a thought, Wang Chong quickly took out the object that his fingertip had touched. In the next instant, a translucent white chess piece that seemed to be carved out of jade appeared on Wang Chong's fingertips. It really was the chess piece that So Yung-sun had given him. What's going on? Wang Chong looked at the white chess piece that was the size of a button on his fingertips. He was stunned. After playing chess with So Yung-sun, the great war god, for months, Wang Chong was very familiar with the white chess pieces that So Yung-sun held. These were the most common chess pieces. Under normal circumstances, they would not contain any killing intent. Could it be? In that instant, countless thoughts flashed through his mind. The scene of him parting ways with So Yung-sun reappeared in his mind. Fate comes and goes. Fate comes and goes. This white chess piece is my gift to you. Take good care of it. I hope that you will be like this chess piece. No matter what, you will always keep your heart and never forget your original intentions. Wang Chong remembered the situation that day clearly. So Yung-sun had simply taken a chess piece from the chessboard and handed it to him. Could it be that he had misunderstood? So Yung-sun's so-called gift was not what he had imagined, but something else. Chapter 220. As someone who had lived through 2 lives, the art of god and demon obliteration had always been a secret art that Wang Chong had hoped to obtain. The reason why Wang Chong and So Yung-sun had been playing chess for the past few months was to win the favor of this war god and learn the art of god and demon obliteration. However, Wang Chong knew that this secret art wasn't that easy to obtain. He was definitely not the first, nor would he be the last, on the path to obtaining the art of god and demon obliteration. So many princes and grandsons had been rejected. Wang Chong didn't think that So Yung-sun would give it to him so easily. Thus, from the very start, Wang Chong didn't think that it would be easy for him to obtain it. But what if? What if So Yung-sun's gift wasn't a white stone, but the art of god and demon obliteration? Just thinking about the possibility made Wang Chong's heart tremble in agitation. Last night, when the Turks attacked and dozens of master archers surrounded White Tiger Peak, Wang Chong's emotions hadn't been so agitated. But at this moment, Wang Chong found it hard to maintain his composure. SSSS. Wang Chong took in a deep breath, his heart filled with apprehension. Then he sent a stream of origin energy through his finger and into the jade-like white chess piece that was the size of a pin. Wang. This short instant felt like centuries to Wang Chong. The white stone was completely silent, as though nothing had happened. Could it be that I misunderstood? Wang Chong raised his head. Even though his face was expressionless, his heart couldn't help but waver. As expected, the art of god and demon obliteration wasn't that easy to obtain. The reason why Elder Su Zhengchen gave him a white stone was because he hoped that he wouldn't stray down the wrong path and focus on doing good. It was just that he was overthinking things. Even as Wang Chong's eyes dimmed and filled with disappointment, rumbling could be heard from deep within the white chess piece. In Wang Chong's eyes, the small white go piece suddenly underwent an earth-shattering change. It no longer felt like a go-piece, but like it had suddenly transformed into a limitless space. And in the depths of this space, a sharp, austere, and domineering will swept through everything. It was filled with a will that could crush all the gods and Buddhas in the heavens, and all living things in the world. Through the finger, it violently rushed into Wang Chang's mind. Wang Chang's body stiffened, and he couldn't move under the effect of this enormous sword intent. Life massacre art. Along with this sharp and solemn sword intent, a mantra he had never seen before suddenly appeared in Wang Chang's mind. Although this mantra only had 100 words, what it revealed was a terrifying sword intent that even Wang Chang had never experienced in his previous life. That's right. His guess was right. So, the white go-piece that Senior Yung-sun had given him indeed contained something else. In that instant, Wang Chang was overjoyed. This is great. Wang Chang clenched his fists tightly, his heart filled with exhilaration. The art of God and demon obliteration, and the great yin-yang creation art of heaven and earth were the two ultimate skills that he had wanted the most in his previous life. The great yin-yang creation art of heaven and earth could rapidly gather origin chi, allowing him to break through realms at the fastest speed, while the art of God and demon obliteration could unleash 200% of the gathered origin chi. With these two ultimate skills, his plans for the martial way were basically complete. Something's not right. Just as Wang Chang was overwhelmed with joy and surprise, Wang Chang suddenly frowned. He finally felt that something was wrong. Art of God and demon obliteration? Isn't it the art of God and demon obliteration? Wang Chang finally felt that something was amiss. Although it also started with common people, it seemed that the mantra that appeared out of nowhere in his mind was not the legendary art of God and demon obliteration that he had imagined. Wang Chang confirmed again. That's right. It was not the art of God and demon obliteration, but the art of God and demon obliteration. That's weird. Wang Chang frowned slightly and immediately quietened down. Wang Chang knew that this matter was not what he had imagined. So Yung-sun had indeed given him an ultimate skill, but it did not seem to be what he had imagined. Art of God and demon obliteration? What is that? Wang Chang lowered his head, his eyes revealing a look of reminiscence. There were many legends about So Yung-sun, and they were all very detailed. He did not even need to rely on the memories of his previous life to find out a lot from the people. However, there did not seem to be the existence of the art of God and demon obliteration in all the legends. What kind of ultimate skill was this? Could it be that So Yung-sun had comprehended it recently? Or was it a secret ultimate skill that he had never used in front of others? Wait a moment. Suddenly, as though he had thought of something, Wang Chang's eyes shone with a strange light. Art of God and demon obliteration? Art of God and demon obliteration? Common people, ghosts and gods. Could it be that these two ultimate arts are actually the same? Wang Chang suddenly recalled the little yin-yang art and great yin-yang heaven creation art. They were both renowned supreme arts of the central plains, but the great yin-yang heaven creation art had to be cultivated from the little yin-yang art. Whether it was his master, the evil emperor, or that traitorous senior brother, they were all the same. The little yin-yang art was the basic version, while the great yin-yang heaven creation art was the evolved version, the perfect version. Could it be that the art of God and demon obliteration was the same? As he thought of this, Wang Chang's eyes gradually brightened. The more Wang Chang thought about it, the more likely it seemed. The art of God and demon obliteration and the great yin-yang heaven creation art were on the same level. If the great yin-yang heaven creation art was the same, then the art of God and demon obliteration might be the same as well. Inexplicably, Wang Chang suddenly recalled a matter. After So Yung-sun passed away, there was a rumor that So Yung-sun's art of God and demon obliteration was actually a fusion of two ultimate skills. However, this rumor wasn't very convincing, and it didn't have much substance to it. Thus no one believed it back then. But at this moment, Wang Chang started to believe it. There's no mistake, that must be the case. So Yung-sun was in the Ghost Tree District to look for a successor to the art of God and demon obliteration. It's impossible for him to suddenly give me an unimportant ultimate skill. The more Wang Chong thought about it, the more he felt that he was right. His cultivation was still too low, and he was only at Origin Energy Tier 7 at the moment. Even though he could be considered to be above average compared to his peers, it was clear that he wasn't at the level where he could cultivate those ultimate skills. Even if So Yung-sun gave him the art of god and demon obliteration, he wouldn't be able to cultivate it. This was similar to how his master, the evil emperor, didn't give him the great Yin-Yang heaven creation art, but the little Yin-Yang art instead. Great, the few months I spent wasn't in vain. Everything wasn't in vain. Wang Chong was delighted. Even though he had only obtained the elementary art of god and demon obliteration, it was already a huge harvest for Wang Chong. If So Yung-sun was willing to impart the art of god and demon obliteration to him, it was entirely possible that he would impart the art of god and demon obliteration to him in the future. However, why did Elder Su change his mind so easily? After the joy, Wang Chong slightly creased his brow, a look of confusion in his eyes. The difficulty of obtaining the art of god and demon obliteration was well known in his previous life. In Wang Chong's memory, there were plenty of talented and intelligent individuals who were accepted by So Yung-sun as his disciple. Even after going through all sorts of trials, they were still chased out of the sect. If the art of god and demon obliteration was that easy to impart, it wouldn't have been lost in his previous life. There wouldn't have been so many princes, scions, nobles, and martial arts geniuses who would feel dejected over it. Although he had played chess with Su Zhengchen for several months, and had expended no small amount of energy, Wang Chong was well aware that compared to his seniors, this little bit of effort he had expended was insignificant. So Yung-sun would make an exception, and impart the art of god and demon obliteration to him so easily. Could it be because of the regional commander's incident? Suddenly, as though recalling something, Wang Chong fell into deep thought. Come to think of it, the only reason why So Yung-sun would suddenly make an exception and impart the beginner version of the art of god and demon obliteration to him could only be because of this incident. So Yung-sun was a loyal subject of the Tang dynasty, the god of war of the Central Plains. Even though he was suspected by the royal court for half his life, So Yung-sun's loyalty remained unwavering. Even to the point of his death, he died on the battlefield in order to save the people. For such a respected existence, it was impossible for him to choose a disciple based on talent alone. There must be other factors involved. It seemed like the memorial he submitted for the regional commander's incident was just an unintentional stab in the back. This was the only explanation for So Yung-sun's special treatment of him. To think that I would receive the acknowledgement of that person because of the regional commander's incident. Wang Chong thought through the entire situation and couldn't help but sigh. When he wrote that memorial, he was only thinking about preventing a future tragedy. He didn't think about So Yung-sun's matter at all, but he didn't expect that he would receive the acknowledgement of this great war god. If not for this coincidence, he probably wouldn't be able to reap any benefits, even if he accompanied him for the next half a year. However, Wang Chong was well aware that So Yung-sun's test wouldn't be so simple. If he wanted to obtain the complete advanced version of the art of god and demon obliteration, he would have to put in a lot more effort. No matter what, I will definitely obtain the complete art of god and demon obliteration. Wang Chong quickly calmed down. He clenched the white chess piece So Yung-sun gave him as a parting gift. Wang Chong subconsciously glanced to the side. The room next door was empty. Su Hanshan had actually left the room a long time ago. On the floor, there was only the bloodied clothes he took off last night. He must have gone to the training room on the main peak of Kunwu. Wang Chong's heart jolted, and he immediately regained his senses. The main peak of the Kunwu training camp had an inscription formation that could gather the spiritual energy of the world. Cultivating there would be much faster than usual. Chapter 221. With no one else in the room, Wang Chong quickly calmed himself down and began to study the 100-word mantra in his head. Art of Life Massacre was a top-notch skill. Although it was only 100 words, the concept it exuded was far beyond all the skills that Wang Chong had learned so far. Common life execution, exterminating the common life. Senior Su's ultimate technique is simply too domineering. It's no wonder he's so cautious and doesn't easily pass on his Tao. Wang Chong thought to himself. This 100-word mantra was only the first level of Art of Life massacre. The killing intent in the white pieces indicated that there was a higher-level mantra inside. However, the disdain, domineeringness, and fierceness that were revealed from merely these 100 words were sufficient to cause one's heart to tremble with fear. Heaven and earth are heartless, treating all life like dogs. This was the essence of Tao. So Yung Sun's mantra exuded a domineering concept that looked down on the world and treated all life like dogs. This was only the first level of the mantra, and it was already like this. One could only imagine how terrifying it would be if he trained to the highest level of art of God and demon obliteration. Calming himself down, Wang Chong quickly immersed himself in studying and understanding the mantra. The higher the level of a martial art, the harder it was to understand. Wang Chong knew this. This was probably another test that So Yung Sun had given him. Time passed slowly. After an unknown amount of time, Wang Chong felt a wave of fatigue and finally opened his eyes. I can't train anymore. So Yung Sun's mantra is too taxing on my mind. Wang Chong thought to himself. Unlike the demonic Emperor Old Man's little yin-yang art, the Art of Life massacre was not an internal energy technique. Rather, it involved the use of profound internal energy techniques. This sort of technique was much more profound and difficult to cultivate. In terms of difficulty, the latter was much more difficult than the former. Meditating in the hall, Wang Chong felt that his mental state had mostly recovered. He then opened his eyes. Come in, Wang Chong said to the door. Crash! The entrance, which was empty a moment ago, was suddenly filled with shadows, and a large group of people rushed in. Zhao Jingdian, Zhuang Jingping, Qi Siwei, Su Qi Gaofeng, and Qin Burang were the ones who had fought alongside Wang Chong last night. Everyone's faces were slightly pale, but after a night of rest, they looked much better. Young master. A group of people walked in and lowered their heads in respect. This wasn't just because Wang Chong had the highest and most illustrious status among them. More importantly, Wang Chong's performance last night had won everyone's respect. When the night raid came, many people panicked. Wang Chong, on the other hand, was the only one who remained calm and collected. Moreover, he was able to gather everyone and launch an organized large-scale counterattack. If it weren't for Wang Chong, who knew how many more people would have died last night, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that Wang Chong had saved their lives. Take a seat. Wang Chong gestured to the seats beside him and beckoned everyone to sit down. Qi Weici, how's your injury? It's all right. Even though I'm injured, I've already informed my clan to send a few bone builders over. I should be fine after I remodel my shoulder blades. Qi Weici said gratefully. If not for Wang Chong coming up with a way to create the safe house and have him stay in the cage at the center, he might not have been able to survive. For this reason, Qi Weici was extremely grateful to Wang Chong. Can you still hold on? I'm fine. Qi Weici hurriedly replied. The 3 great training camps were appointed by the Holy Emperor himself. If he were to return home to recuperate right after the camp opened, who knew what would happen in the future? Furthermore, the Qi clan wouldn't go offline easily. The soldiers of the Qi clan would never retreat on the battlefield. As a scion of the Qi clan, Qi Weici naturally wouldn't be so cowardly. That's good. Wang Chong nodded. The 2 gifts that the Zhuang clan and Qi clan had sent over yesterday clearly expressed their intention to side with him. According to the rules of the capital, Zhuang Jingping and Qi Weici would be working under him on the battlefield in the future. Thus, it was only right for him to show some concern for them. Qi Weici, can you contact your clan and have them send some of the Qi clan's guards over? Wang Chong said. Gongzi, do you mean to say that those people will come over? Qi Weici's expression warped. The faces of the others also warped upon hearing those words. Everyone had come over to check on such a huge incident last night. Here, Wang Chong held the highest authority. Wang Chong's big uncle was an influential official in the royal court, so it was a good idea to ask him about this matter. However, Wang Chong's reaction caught everyone off guard. Recalling the assault last night, everyone felt a lingering fear in their hearts. However, those master archers weren't something that they could deal with their current strength. None of them would be able to handle another one. That's not it. Wang Chong shook his head with a grim expression. It's better to be safe than sorry. If our clan has such experts, we can send them over beforehand. This way, even if something were to happen, we would still be able to provide support. Besides, since those people are bold enough to assault the training camp in the capital, who can say that they won't dare to do it again? The future had already changed, and Wang Chong couldn't be sure whether those people would dare to do it again. Furthermore, the incident last night had reminded Wang Chong that even if he was in the Kunwa training camp, he should still make some preparations. There's no harm in being cautious. The steel guards, there shouldn't be a problem. However, the clan has always placed great importance on the steel guards. My guess is that they will only send 2 or 3 of them over. Hearing Wang Chong's words, Qi Weisi heaved a sigh of relief. A contemplative look appeared in his eyes. The steel guards of the Qi clan wielded a massive axe, and they were renowned for their bravery on the battlefield. However, the training of the steel guards wasn't easy. The Qi clan viewed every single steel guard with great importance. If it was just Qi Weisi's identity, standing and capability, it wouldn't be enough for him to mobilize the steel guards. However, if he were to use Wang Chong's identity, the situation would be different. Qi Weisi knew that if he were to use his identity as the future successor of the Wang clan, the clan wouldn't turn him down. This was a matter that involved politics. Furthermore, from Qi Weisi's selfish motives, he actually wanted to transfer a few powerful iron guards to his side. This would be of great benefit to his position in the clan. 2 or 3 should be enough. Wang Chong didn't say much. The fighting prowess of the Qi clan's steel guards was formidable. On top of that, the steel guards weren't just powerful. The armor they were wearing was the highest quality Xian metal armor. Even a master archer of the Turks wouldn't be able to pierce through their heavy armor. If they were here, they would at least be able to protect their group. Zhuang Jingping, is it possible for you to mobilize a few experts from your clan? Wang Chong said. It wasn't convenient for the steel guards to charge through the mountains. At the very least, they weren't as powerful as the Qi clan's steel guards. However, if the situation was truly disadvantageous to them, they could still make use of the Zhuang clan's steel guards to escape from the Kunwa training camp. This could also be considered as considering the possibility of defeat, before even considering the outcome of the battle. There's no problem. I can make an application to my clan, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Zhuang Jingping replied without any hesitation. Unlike Qi Weisi, Zhuang Jingping's standing in the clan was probably much higher than Qi Weisi's. Furthermore, after the incident last night, even if Wang Chong didn't say anything, Zhuang Jingping had such thoughts. Right, Gongzi? The assault of the Turks has been going on for an entire night. Gongzi, have you received any news? How does the royal court intend to deal with it? Zhuang Jingping suddenly changed the topic. Everyone in the room immediately turned to look at Wang Chong with anticipation in their eyes. Just this sentence alone was sufficient to show Wang Chong's standing. Based on Wang Chong's performance last night and his standing, Wang Chong had already formed a small faction in the Kunwa training camp. Even though it was still a small faction, and it was still very weak, it was already on the right track. I don't think that there's any need to doubt this matter. The royal court will definitely deal with it appropriately. Those students who died will definitely be dealt with appropriately. Walala. Just as they were speaking, the flapping of wings suddenly sounded from above their heads. This sound immediately attracted everyone's attention. Everyone raised their heads and saw a snow-white pigeon appearing on the roof of Wang Chong's room. After an entire night of battle, Wang Chong's room was already riddled with holes. Not only the walls, even the ceiling was riddled with holes. The pigeon flew down from the hole created by the Wolf Fang arrow and landed on Wang Chong's palm. It's Big Uncle's carrier pigeon. Wang Chong glanced at the mark on the pigeon's neck and reached out to take a well-folded letter from the pigeon's leg. The words were forceful, and it exuded a dignified aura. It was clear that it wasn't written by an ordinary person. Everyone in the room seemed to have guessed something, and they immediately turned their gazes over. There's news! After reading the letter from Big Uncle Wang Zhen, Wang Chong felt much more relaxed. The royal court has made a decision. All of the dead students will be compensated generously, and the immediate family members of the dead will be given special grooming. On top of that, the royal court has decided to dispatch the imperial guards over, and 50 master archers will be stationed on every mountain. On top of that, due to the large number of dead students, the royal court has decided to conduct a second round of recruitment. Other than that, due to the night assault by the Eastern and Western Turkic Khaganates and the Goguryeo Empire, the royal court has summoned Protector General Zhang Shogui of the Anong Protectorate Manor and the Northern Protectorate Manor to punish the Eastern and Western Turkic Khaganates and Goguryeo. This is to prevent such a thing from happening again. That's great. The first part of the letter didn't make much of a difference to the crowd, but when they heard the order to wage war, everyone's spirits immediately rose. What compensation? What recruitment? What imperial guards? Only by dealing with the Eastern and Western Turkic Khaganates and the Goguryeo Empire would they be able to vent their anger. This was the style of the Tang dynasty of the Central Plains. The Eastern and Western Turkic Khaganates and the Goguryeo Empire have lost more than they gained this time. Wang Chong put down the letter as a smile crept onto his lips. This was the Tang dynasty in his memories, the aggressive and enterprising Tang dynasty. His previous efforts hadn't gone to waste. Wang Chong was certain that the King of Song had played a significant role in this decision. The Eastern and Western Turkic Khaganates and the Goguryeo Empire now had something on them. Putting aside the Northern Protectorate Manor, Wang Chong didn't have a good impression of Zhang Shoqiu of the Anong Protectorate Manor, even though the latter's unintentional mistake had led to the destruction of the Tang dynasty. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.